Today we're venturing deep into the endless highways of Texas, where the roads stretch on forever and the stories are darker than the night sky. From ghostly hitchhikers near forgotten cemeteries to roads that seem to loop endlessly into nowhere. These are 20 of the most disturbing true stories from Texas roads that will make you question every mile you've ever driven alone. But before we start the engine, here's something strange. Most viewers make one huge mistake. They leave without subscribing, and by doing that, they miss out on the creepiest, spine-tingling tales that only the bravest dare to hear. Don't be one of them. Hit that subscribe button now, because today's just the beginning, and the terror hiding beyond the next mile marker is far from over. So tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below, because out here, on these roads, time gets strange, and sometimes the night never really ends. Now, let's drive straight into the darkness. It happened in late October 2019, just outside of Blanco, Texas. I was driving a tow truck for a small local garage that handled roadside assistance. Not AAA or anything, just two old guys and me, patching tires, towing breakdowns and pulling drunks out of ditches on weekends. It was a Wednesday night, about 2:08 a.m., cold enough to see your breath outside, and a heavy fog had rolled in over the hill country. The kind of fog that makes the world feel like it's shrinking around you, like you're driving through cotton and the road might disappear at any moment. I'd just finished hauling a wrecked Dodge Charger off Ranch Road 165. Drunk kid, wrapped it around a cedar tree. He was lucky to be alive. I was tired, wired on cheap gas station coffee, and itching to get home to my wife and 3-year-old son. My radio was quiet. No calls. Just the hum of the tires and the occasional buzz of interference from the nearby radio tower. I remember glancing at the clock. 2:13 a.m. That time sticks in my brain for some reason. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was a deer or maybe a loose cow. Stuff like that happens out here. But as I got closer, I realized it was a man, standing on the shoulder just past the Miller Creek Cemetery sign. He looked out of place. Not just in the obvious way, I mean, who hitchhikes at 2 in the morning in fog like that? But in a deeper way, like something was just off. He was wearing a gray suit, the kind you'd bury someone in, with the jacket torn at the shoulder and hanging loose. No coat, no bag, no flashlight. Just standing there with his thumb out, eyes fixed straight ahead like he was already looking through my windshield. I slowed down without thinking. Something in me, that dumb, half-awake, people-pleasing instinct, thought maybe he was stranded. Maybe he needed help. But as I got closer, I felt this pulling sensation, like I was being drawn toward him, even as my stomach turned to ice. His face was pale, too pale, and blank. Not emotionless, I mean literally blank. His features were there, but soft, unfocused, like my eyes couldn't lock onto them. I don't know how to describe it better than this. He looked like someone you'd remember from a dream, but never quite recognize in real life. I slowed to a crawl and rolled down the passenger window halfway. "You okay, man?" I asked. He didn't answer. He stepped forward once, then paused, like he was waiting for me to unlock the door. My hand hovered over the lock, but I couldn't move it. Something about his eyes, or where his eyes should have been, made my entire body go cold. Every instinct screamed to keep driving, but I was stuck, frozen. Then, and I swear this is true, my radio crackled to life and I heard something. It wasn't a voice, not really, just static, and a low moaning hum, almost like someone blowing across the top of a bottle. It came through the speakers, loud and hollow, and then the man smiled. Not a normal smile. It stretched too wide, too slow, like he had to remember how to do it. And his lips were wet, shiny. I swear they glistened even through the fog. That broke the spell. I slammed the window shut and hit the gas. My rear tires spun on the shoulder gravel for a second before catching pavement. I glanced in the rear view mirror and he was gone, just gone. No figure, no silhouette, No shadow in the fog. I drove straight for 5 more miles without breathing. When I finally calmed down enough to look around, I was almost at the turnoff for my house, near Riverbend Road. I pulled into my driveway, shaking, heart pounding like I'd run 10 miles, uphill. My wife was asleep. I didn't wake her, but when I stepped out of the truck, I smelled something. Smoke. Not cigarette smoke. Not wildfire. This was older, thicker, like wet ashes and mildew. I checked the truck. Nothing was burning. Then I opened the passenger door, and that's when my stomach turned. On the seat, pressed into the worn leather, was a dark, wet stain, about the size of a handprint, still fresh, still glistening, and just above it, on hole. The inside of the passenger window were 5 long smears like fingers dragging slowly down through dust or condensation. Only I hadn't cleaned that window in weeks. There wasn't enough moisture for anything to leave a trail like that. I slammed the door shut and went inside. Didn't sleep that night, or the next. The next morning, I took the truck to the shop. Told my boss I needed a few days off for family stuff. He barely looked up from his paperwork. Didn't ask. I never told anyone the full story. Not my wife. Not the guys at work. Not until now. But here's the part that's really been eating at me. A week later, I was getting groceries at the Blanco HEB, and I ran into an old rancher I'd towed once before. Nice guy. Quiet. The kind who still wears pressed jeans and a bolo tie to the store. He looked at me funny and said, "You look like you've seen the Miller Creek Man." I froze. "What?" He nodded, real slow. Gray suit, stands by the cemetery, thumb out. But he ain't hitchhiking, not really. He's looking for something. "What's he looking for?" I asked, trying not to sound shaken. The old man shrugged. "Don't know, but whatever it is, if you pick him up, he leaves you a piece of it, a little reminder." I didn't ask anything else. I just walked away. The stain never came out of the seat. I sold the truck 2 weeks later. But every now and then, especially in the early hours of the morning, I still think about that man, that blank face, that slow, spreading smile. And sometimes, when I wake up before dawn and look out the bedroom window, I swear I can see fog rolling down the driveway, even when it's 90 degrees outside. I haven't driven past Miller Creek Cemetery since that night, and I never will again. This happened 3 years ago, almost to the day. August 21st, 2022. I was running solo from Phoenix to San Antonio. Pretty standard haul, an old HVAC unit bound for a renovation project in a strip mall. Nothing out of the ordinary, my company. Runs mostly southwest roads, so I've been through that patch of I-10 100 times before. I could drive it in my sleep. Hell, I probably have. The forecast that week had been nothing but sun and heat, typical late August weather. Dry wind, 104 degrees even after sunset. The kind of heat that sticks to your skin no matter how much AC. U-blast. I left Phoenix around 4:30 p.m., just before rush hour. Made it past Tucson by nightfall. Traffic was light, stars were out. No moon that I could see, just a black stretch of road and the whine of tires on asphalt. By the time I got west of Ozona, it was past 2 a.m. That stretch of Texas is empty in a way that gets into your head if you're not used to it. Flat, dry, scrubland and dusty ridges as far as the eye can see. No houses, no lights, no cell reception. Just you, the road, and whatever your mind wants to conjure up. I just passed a rest area about 15 miles back. Thought about pulling off to grab a cup of burnt coffee and stretch my legs, but I wanted to push on a bit further. I was making good time. I remember checking the dash, 2:16 a.m., the temp read 97 degrees. I crested a slow hill, and that's when I saw it. Mile marker 234, nothing special about it. Just one of those green reflective signs, halfway leaning from where some semi probably clipped it years ago. I remember it because my odometer hit a neat number right after, 233,300. It stuck in my brain. Little details like that do when you drive alone this much. A few minutes later, I started picking up static on my CB. At first I thought it was just another trucker with a weak signal, or maybe one of those local yahoos screwing around with a home setup, but the sound was off, not normal chatter. It was like someone whispering, fast, panicked whispers that would cut in and out. I leaned in and turned up the volume. The voice was speaking backwards, not just jumbled, reversed, like someone had recorded a message and played it backwards, over the channel. It would come and go in bursts, 3 or 4 seconds of garbled whispers, then dead silence. Then again, same weird cadence. I slowed a little, scanned the other channels. Nothing. Dead air. I flipped back. Channel 19. Static, whisper, silence. I chalked it up to interference. I've heard weird stuff out there before. Ham operators, foreign signals bouncing around. Once even caught a preacher from some Mexican AM station ranting about the end times, in the middle of the night. But this was different. It felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. I rolled down the window to get some air, immediately regretted it. The wind was hot and smelled like scorched dirt. But underneath that was something else. A faint chemical tang, like burnt plastic or overheated wiring. I checked my dash. No warning lights. Temp was fine. Engine sounded smooth. Still, something was off. I passed another green sign, mile marker, 234, again. I blinked. Thought I misread it. Maybe it was 235 and I just caught it wrong. But 10 minutes later, there it was again. 234. I slowed down and actually looked at the mile marker this time. Same tilt, same scraped paint on the bottom. Left corner. I'm not an idiot. I know those markers are numbered for a reason. You only see the same one twice if you're going in circles. But there's no way I turned off. I hadn't even seen an exit. I checked my GPS. Nothing. Gray screen. Signal lost. I've had that happen before in dead zones, but it always comes back, within a mile or two. This time it didn't. Just that frozen screen. No movement. No road data. I grabbed my phone. No bars. Black screen when I tried to load the map. Dead. Okay. Now I was getting uneasy. I kept driving. 5 minutes. 10. The CB was still crackling every so often. More reversed whispers. This time louder. Desperate, almost like someone crying. Then quiet. Then I saw the headlights. Off in the distance, behind me. Just a faint glow at first, but getting closer. At first I was relieved. Another driver. Maybe I'd ask if they had working GPS, see if I'd somehow gotten off track. I flicked the CB mic. Breaker 19, you got ears on? Anyone else westbound near 234? Static. I tried again. Nothing. The whispering cut in again, and I swear to God this time it said my name. Chris. Clear as day. Backwards, but unmistakable. That stopped me cold. I hadn't said my name over the CB all night. The headlights were gaining. I adjusted my mirrors, couldn't make out the vehicle yet. No roof lights, so probably not a big rig. Maybe a pickup or a box truck. It was weird, though. The lights seemed too far apart, like they were mounted wider than any standard vehicle. I watched them get closer and closer, until they were almost on top of me. But no matter how much they gained, I never actually saw the vehicle. Just lights. Floating there in the dark. Maybe 100 feet back, then they were gone. No swerve, no slowdown. Just gone, like someone killed the switch. My cab lit up with darkness. I hit the brakes and pulled to the shoulder. The smell hit me again. Stronger now. Melted plastic and something sour, like meat left out too long. I turned off the engine just to listen. No wind, no bugs, no passing. Cars. Just a vast crushing silence that felt like it was pressing in on all sides. Then, out of that silence, my CB crackled. Once, then a long pause. And a voice, deep and slow, not reversed this time, but wrong. You were not supposed to stop. Froze. Just sat there staring at the CB like it had grown teeth. I didn't respond. I couldn't. A moment later, my headlights dimmed. Not off, just a slow, deliberate fade, like something was sucking power from the battery. Then they flickered and held steady, weaker than before. The air in the cab felt thick, like breathing through cotton. I turned the key. Nothing. No turnover. No clicks. Just dead. That's when I saw something in the mirrors. Movement, just outside the edge of my headlights. Low to the ground, crawling. Almost. Long limbs, too many joints, like a person moving in fast forward on all fours. It darted across the road behind me, then again from the other side. Closer this time. I slammed the locks down and reached for the flashlight in my glove box. Clicked it on and shined it through the window. Nothing. Just flat road and scrub brush. Then the cab shook. Not violently, just a soft, deliberate nudge. Like someone pushing against the door from outside. Then again. A slow scraping sound down the passenger side. I held the light steady, trying not to breathe. Something tapped the window. 3 slow knocks. Like knuckles. Like it was waiting for me to look. I didn't. I kept the light pointed forward, watching the road, refusing to turn. My head, then a whisper, inside the cab, right next to my ear, "Chris." I screamed and swung the flashlight around. Nothing there. The cab was empty. That broke something in me. I grabbed the key, twisted hard. The truck roared to life like nothing had happened. Headlights brightened, dash lit up. CB went dead silent. Threw it in gear and peeled out. Didn't stop, didn't look back. After maybe 10 minutes, another 234 sign. Then finally, 235. My GPS chirped and came back to life like it had just taken a nap. I had signal again. Phone buzzed with texts. Everything was normal, except it wasn't. I made it to San Antonio by morning, parked the truck, and called in sick for the rest of the week. I didn't tell dispatch what happened. Didn't even tell my wife. Just said I had heat stroke or something. But here's the thing. A week later, I got curious. Looked up that stretch of highway, pulled open Google Earth, zoomed in on the westbound side of I-10, 20 miles outside Ozona. There's only 1 mile marker 234, but it shows up 3 times on Street View. Same leaning post, same scrape mark, and every time I look at it now, the image loads a little slower. Just long enough for me to wonder what's going to be there next time. I haven't taken that route since. Not once. If dispatch tries to send me through Ozona, I reroute. Add a day to the trip. They don't ask why, and my CB, I ripped it out, because some nights, even with it gone, I still hear it. Faint through the dash. Whispers. And they're not backwards anymore. I've debated posting this for over a year now. I don't expect anyone to believe me. Hell, I wouldn't believe myself if it hadn't happened the way it did. But sometimes I wake up thinking I can still hear her crying, and it won't. Stop until I get up and check the hallway. Nothing's ever there. Nothing ever is. This all started in the fall of 2022. I was living in Andrews, Texas, working maintenance for a small oil field service company. Not drilling or anything high stakes, mostly checking tanks, replacing busted valves, cleaning sludge pits, that sort of thing. The hours were weird, but the pay was solid. That week I'd been covering for another guy on the night shift, checking remote wells north of Odessa off a stretch of backroads called 1283. You won't find that road on a normal GPS. Most of those, lease roads, are unmarked. Gravel-cut lines that wind through barbed wire pastures and mesquite scrub. The company had a little trailer office set up outside Goldsmith, and I'd usually leave from there around 7:30 in the evening. The sun sets fast out there, and by 8 it was already full dark, with nothing around but stars and pump jacks. It was Tuesday night, October 18th, 2022. I remember because it was the day after my niece's birthday, and I'd sent a video of the sunset to my sister just before starting my route. It had been a calm, warm evening. Around 75 degrees, no wind, the kind of stillness that feels like the desert's holding its breath. The well I was headed to was called Well 6B on the Hernandez lease. It sat about 5 miles off the main county road, down a winding gravel path that looked more like a cattle trail than a road. No lights, no signs. You just had to know where to turn. I'd been there before, and it was always uneventful. A small tank battery, 2 separators, and a flaring unit that rarely kicked on. I'd check the gauges, log the pressures, make sure No oil was leaking into the ground, then head out, a 30-minute job tops. That night, I got there around 8:20 p.m. I remember because I logged my arrival in the digital tracker app we used. Everything looked fine, dead quiet except for the low hiss of the flare stack and the occasional chirp of crickets in the brush. I walked around with my flashlight, checked the tanks, wiped some sludge off a pressure gauge, and was just about to sign out when I noticed something odd out by the tree line. At first I thought it was a deer, a pale shape about 50 yards away, crouched low near a clump of salt cedar. But when I turned my light toward it, it didn't bolt like a deer should have. It just didn't move. I kept the beam on it. That's when I saw it was a woman. She was barefoot, wearing what looked like a white sundress. Not a nightgown, but old-fashioned, maybe vintage. Her hair was long and dark, and she was crouched low, one hand on the ground like she was steadying herself. Her shoulders shook like she was crying. I called out, "Ma'am, you okay?" and started walking toward her. I thought maybe she'd been in a wreck and wandered off the road or was strung out on something. It's not unusual in that part of the Permian, but as I got closer, I stopped. Something about the way she moved, or didn't move, felt wrong. It was like she was frozen in place. The way a statue holds a pose, except her shoulders still trembled slightly, and I could hear soft, choked sobs. The ground under her was darker, uneven. I shined the light down and saw what looked like freshly turned earth, like a shallow pit had been dug. The dirt was damp, like it had just rained, even though we hadn't had rain in over a week. That's when the smell hit me. It was faint at first, sour, sweet, rotten. Not gas or oil, not dead animal. More like damp clothes left in a hot car for too long, mixed with copper and something worse I couldn't place. I stopped about 10 feet from her. "Do you need help?" I asked again, quieter. She didn't respond, didn't flinch, just kept crying, face angled down toward the hole. Then she started whispering. I couldn't make it out at first, just soft, rhythmic murmurs, like a chant. I stepped closer. The dirt shifted near her. Feet, and I swear to God I saw something underneath move. Not a lot, just the faintest push, like a breath beneath the soil. I backed away. I know how that sounds, and maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was an animal burrowing or something, but I was trained to recognize pipeline hazards and disturbed earth like that. It didn't make sense. I was starting to feel dizzy. The smell had gotten stronger, and the air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on my chest. My flashlight flickered. The batteries were new. I'd just replaced them the day before. She whispered something again, louder this time. I could finally make it out. "He's not done yet." That's all she said, over and over. "He's not done yet. He's not done yet." I turned and walked fast back to the truck. I didn't run, not until I was inside and the door was locked. I started the engine and the headlights swept across the field. She was gone. No trace, no white dress, no fresh dirt. I sat there for a full minute before I reversed and peeled out, gravel spitting behind me. I didn't stop until I was back on the highway. I called my supervisor and said there was a loose cow near the site that might have damaged the perimeter. That was the best I could come up with without sounding insane. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, or what little of it I'd seen, and heard that whisper in my ear. The next day, I drove back out to the site. Daylight helped calm my nerves. The tanks and equipment looked fine. No sign of disturbed earth. The ground where I thought the grave had been was dry, crusted, and cracked. I walked over it. Nothing gave way, no smell, no sign anyone had ever been there. I convinced myself I'd hallucinated it. Maybe the heat, long hours, or a trick of light and shadow. Maybe I'd dozed off at the site and dreamed it, until the next night. I wasn't even scheduled to check 6B again, but at around 9:45 p.m., I got a system ping from the automated monitor. It said the pressure had spiked on one of the separators. That happens sometimes, usually a clogged valve or false sensor, but protocol said someone had to go check. I drove out again, against my better judgment. The moon was out, half full, casting enough light to see the shimmer of heat off the road. Everything felt still. This time I brought my personal flashlight, a heavy-duty Phoenix with a 1/200 lumen beam. I also kept a wrench in my hand just in case. When I got there, the pressure had normalized. False alarm. I did a quick scan anyway and was about to leave when I noticed it again. Farther out this time, on the edge of the field beyond the tanks. The woman. Same dress, same crouched posture, same crying. But the pit, the disturbed earth, was larger now, wider. And there was something new. A small wooden cross stuck in the soil. Fresh, clean wood. No name or markings. I didn't go closer. I didn't say anything. I got back in the truck and left. I didn't tell anyone about her. That Friday, a coworker named Travis went out to 6B for a routine check. He was a good guy, former Army, no nonsense, smart. He didn't come back. They found his truck still running, parked halfway off the lease road, front wheels buried in a shallow ditch. Driver's door wide open. No sign of him. We searched for hours, days, dogs, drones, everything. No blood, no struggle, no tracks. It was like he stepped out of his truck and disappeared. I never told anyone what I saw. I quit 2 weeks later. Moved back to Lubbock, took a job at a parts warehouse. No more night work, no more oil field. But I think about her a lot. Sometimes, I'll see a post on a local forum about a crying woman on a back road outside Odessa. Sometimes a new grave shows up, marked only by a cross. One time, out of morbid curiosity, I drove out that way again. I didn't go all the way to the lease, just close enough to see the faint outline of the tanks in the distance. It was dusk. I thought I saw something white in the field. I didn't stop. I don't go out there anymore. But some nights, if the wind's just right, I still hear her crying. And I wonder what's in that ground, and who's going in next. It was September 18th, 2022, a Sunday. I remember because I'd just come back from a weekend visiting my mom in Uvalde. She's not in great health these days, and I try to make the drive at least twice a month. It's about a 2.5-hour haul from my place in Alpine, and I usually take Route 90 straight across West Texas. If you know the area, you know it's long, flat, and quiet. Miles of nothing but scrub brush, dusty hills, and the kind of silence that starts to feel thick around the edges after dark. Cell service dies about 30 minutes out of Del Rio, and after that, it's just you and the road. I left Uvalde around 6:30 p.m. The sun was already low, throwing that kind of molasses-orange light across the highway, and the sky was still hazy from a controlled burn near Bracketville. The heat hadn't let up all day, the kind that makes your clothes stick to your back before you even get in the car. I had the AC on full blast and a podcast playing, trying to fight off the usual road fatigue. Nothing strange happened for the first hour or so. I passed maybe 2 cars, both heading east, and waved to a border patrol truck sitting idle by the side of the road with its lights off. The kind of scenery you see so often, it all blends together. Sun-bleached signs, rusted fences, and broken cattle guards that look like they haven't held anything in years. It was about 8:15 when I saw the car, just past the turnoff for Laughlin Air Force Base. The sky had gone that deep blue-black, and the first stars were starting to push through. I noticed the car because it was coming toward me in the opposite lane, but its headlights weren't on. At first I thought maybe they were just dim. Maybe the driver had bad bulbs or forgot to switch to high beams. But as it got closer, it became obvious. No lights. None. Just a black sedan gliding down the empty stretch of Route 90 with nothing but the moon catching its windshield. Now I know what people say about that stretch of highway. Locals whisper about it. Truckers, old ranchers, gas station clerks. They'll tell you in a low voice not to mess with certain things. Don't pick up hitchhikers. Don't drive it at night unless you have to. And the one I'd always rolled my eyes at. Don't flash your lights at cars driving without theirs. I didn't believe in that crap. I still don't. Not really. But that night, I don't know. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I just wasn't thinking. But out of habit, or some dumb sense of courtesy, I flicked my brights at the oncoming car. Just a quick flash, a reflex. The sedan didn't react. No high beams, no honk. It just kept driving. I thought that was the end of it. About 5 minutes later, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw a pair of headlights. Not unusual, except they were closer than they should have been. Now, you have to understand, this was a dead stretch of road. I hadn't seen another vehicle going my direction since I'd left Uvalde. And there weren't any turnoffs or hidden roads behind me that I'd passed. Yet somehow there was a car behind me now. Close enough that I could make out the shape of its front grille. Low, flat, wide. A black sedan. I felt a little jolt of something. Not fear exactly, but an unease that settled into my spine. I turned down the podcast and listened, as if that would help. The car didn't pass. It just stayed there, tucked behind me like it was drafting me in a race. I tried speeding up a little. Went from 65 to 70, then to 75. The sedan matched me, exactly. I could see its headlights dipping with every rise in the pavement, bouncing in rhythm with mine. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe someone trying to stay in my lights. Maybe a nervous driver. Maybe someone who'd turned around back at Del Rio and just caught up. But something was off. I checked the mirror again, and for a moment, just a split second, I thought I saw a face in the windshield. Pale. Featureless. Too still. That's when I took the next exit. A gravel turnoff leading toward a shuttered gas station with a rusted-out canopy and a busted ice machine still sitting out front. The kind of place that looks like it's been abandoned since the early 2000s. I pulled off, figuring I'd let the sedan pass and just wait a minute to put some space between us. But the sedan pulled off with me. No signal, no hesitation. Just followed me like it knew where I was going before I did. I don't know why, but my heart started pounding. I didn't like it. Didn't like the way the air felt all of a sudden. Too thick, too quiet. The crickets had stopped. Even the wind had died down. There was a smell in the air now too, like old rain and something rotting. I stayed in the car, hands locked on the wheel, watching the sedan in my side mirror as it parked about 10 feet behind me. Its headlights stayed on, but I couldn't see a driver. I mean that literally. The windshield looked black. No silhouette, no movement. Just nothing. I sat there for maybe a full minute, then another. I texted my brother, just said, "Hey, weird car behind me," pulled off at an old gas station. Not sure if I should drive or wait. The message didn't send. No service. Figures. I made a decision, started the car back up, threw it into drive, and peeled back onto Route 90 without checking the mirror. And for a few minutes I thought I'd shaken it. I didn't see anything behind me. The road was empty again. Silent. I even laughed a little. That nervous kind of laugh you do when the adrenaline's still pumping but you're trying to convince yourself everything's fine. I passed a green mile marker. 113. Then another. 114. Then, I swear, I passed 113 again. I blinked, looked back. The last marker had said 113, but now I was passing it again. Same tilted post, same bullet holes. I slowed down, stared at the horizon, and that's when I saw it. The sedan, in front of me. It was maybe 50 yards ahead, parked on the side of the road. No lights now, just a dark shape barely outlined by moonlight. I didn't pass it. I hadn't passed it. I tapped the brakes. I remember saying out loud, "No, no, no, no." Like if I just rejected it hard enough, reality would reassert itself. But there it was. And as I watched, it pulled onto the road again, smooth as glass, and started driving. Not away from me, toward me. I yanked the wheel to the side and cut through the dirt median, heart slamming in my throat. I didn't even check for traffic. There wasn't any. Just spun the car around and started heading back toward Del Rio. I didn't care how far back I had to go. I just wanted to be around people again. Lights, noise, something. I drove fast, over 90 at some points, eyes scanning the mirrors, the horizon, the ditches. I never saw the sedan again. I made it back to Del Rio around 9:45 and stopped at a Stripes gas station just past the city limits. It was buzzing with fluorescents and families and the high-pitched whine of a broken cooler fan. I stayed there until almost 11, drinking burnt coffee and pretending to browse the snack aisle until my hands stopped shaking. Eventually, I got back on the road, took a different route, up through Comstock and then north on 277, added almost an hour to the trip, but I didn't care. I got home after midnight, didn't sleep, couldn't. Kept looking out the window every time a car passed on the highway. I didn't tell anyone for a while. Just said I'd gotten tired and turned back. But the story started spreading again a few months later. A kid from Eagle Pass was found in his car, parked out near the same stretch, headlights on, doors locked, dead, no visible injuries, no sign of struggle. Just sitting in the driver's seat with his hands on the wheel and his eyes wide open. They said it was a stroke, an aneurysm, something that just happens. But I know better. If you drive Route 90 near Del Rio and you see a car coming at you with no headlights, just let it pass. Don't flash your lights. Don't try to be helpful. Some things out there aren't people, and they will follow you home. It was the summer of 2017 when I moved to Corpus Christi, Texas. I'd taken a job as a field technician with a small energy company contracted by the state. Mostly I inspected utility poles, measured emissions from substations, and occasionally drove out to remote locations to log weather damage. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, paid well, and let me keep to myself. I just turned 30. After a rough few years, breakup, a bad wreck, and the death of my younger brother, I was more than ready to start over. The flat open land down there had this strange beauty to it. When the wind cut across the fields and the sun sank low, behind the mesquite trees, it almost made you forget the heat and the isolation. That August, the job had me driving all over Nueces County. I'd leave the office around 6:30 in the morning and sometimes not get back until after 10 at night, depending on the route. Most of the roads were empty 2 lanes with long stretches of nothing. Just cracked asphalt, barbed wire fences, and pastures full of low brush and rusted-out farming equipment. You get used to the silence. You even come to appreciate it. But there was this one road, FM 666, yeah, that's the real name. Farm to Market Road 666. Locals call it 666, or the Devil's Spine, depending on how dramatic they're feeling. It cuts through the rural edges of the county, running between Robstown and Banquette. Not a long stretch, maybe 20 miles end to end, but it's got this weird reputation, the kind of road people mutter about but don't explain. I remember the first time I asked about it was during lunch with my supervisor, a guy named Ray. We were at a Whataburger, off Leopard Street. "Hey," I said, looking over my route list, "why's this one called FM 666? That for real?" Ray wiped his mouth with a napkin and didn't answer right away. "It's just a number," he said finally. "You'll be on that one tomorrow?" "Yeah. Anything weird I should know?" He stared at the window for a second. "Just don't break down out there after dark." I laughed. "Why, Chupacabra gonna get me?" He didn't laugh back. "Cell signal's trash. Coyotes are bold. That kind of place." I let it go. Figured he was just being cautious. It wouldn't be the first road with bad reception or nocturnal animals. But later that night, lying in bed at the little duplex I was renting in Calallen, I looked up FM 666 out of curiosity. Just a quick Google search. There wasn't much. A handful of old news articles about car accidents, a few blurry dashcam videos, some Reddit threads asking if the road was haunted. That kind of thing. Most of the comments were jokes or urban legends. One post did stand out, though. It was from a woman who claimed she'd heard music while driving the road late at night. Not from her radio, just out there, in the fields. She described it as a faint, echoing mariachi tune. Said it came and went, always around mile marker 13. A few other users chimed in with similar stories, though most sounded like they were just playing along. I didn't think anything of it. Every area's got its ghost stories. The next afternoon, around 4:45, I found myself turning onto FM 666. The day had been sweltering. Triple digits, no breeze, sun like a blowtorch on your neck. My truck's AC was barely keeping up. I had 3 more poles to check before I could call it and head back. The road was exactly what I expected. Cracked, narrow, lined with barbed wire and wild grass. Ditches on both sides. Occasionally a cattle gate or an abandoned barn set far off the shoulder. Around 5:15 I passed mile marker 13. Didn't hear anything. Just whined against the truck and the hum of the tires on asphalt. But when I pulled over about a mile past it to inspect a leaning pole, I noticed something odd. The grass along the ditch was flattened in places, not just where a vehicle might have pulled over, more like wide curved impressions. Long arcs through the brush, almost like someone had been dragging something heavy in a circle. I squatted down to get a better look and saw faint shoe prints, not boots or work shoes, dress shoes, men's by the size of them. 2 sets, walking, in loops. Weird but not impossible. Maybe some teenagers messing around. Maybe a rancher had guests over and they wandered out here drunk. Still, it nagged at me. By the time I finished logging the last inspection and turned back toward town, the sun was low and everything was tinted gold and red. The sky was clear except for one thin gray cloud that hung strangely still to the west, like a smudge on a mirror. I don't know why I noticed it. Just looked wrong somehow, out of place. As I passed mile 13 again, I felt it. The truck's radio fuzzed for half a second. Then silence. Not static. Silence. And from somewhere, impossibly distant, but somehow close, I heard it. Music. Not from my radio. Not through the window. Just somewhere. Floating. It was soft. Fragile. The kind of sound you might mistake for your own thoughts if you weren't paying attention. High-pitched strings. A trembling trumpet. The kind of mournful, slow mariachi you hear at funerals or late-night cantinas. I slowed down, rolled down the window. The music was louder now, but I saw nothing. No lights in the fields, no cars behind. Me, no people, just the fading sun and the endless Texas scrub. Then, something flickered, not in the distance, in my mirrors. For just a second, my rear view reflected someone sitting in the back seat. A man dressed in a black suit and wide-brimmed hat, face turned away, head slightly bowed. I spun around in my seat, heart slamming in my throat. Nothing. Back seat was empty. I pulled over hard, dust kicking up behind me. The music was gone. No wind, no sound. Just my own heavy breathing and the tick of the engine cooling. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, telling myself it was nothing, a trick of the heat, sunstroke maybe. But I didn't take that road again for a week, until the job forced me to. August 23rd, overcast skies, 92 degrees. Thunderstorms had passed through earlier, so the air was heavy and wet. I was on my way back from a failed inspection. A gate was locked, no way in. I had to double back down FM 666 to get home before curfew. Corpus had just reinstated one due to a local protest. I was tired, hungry, I wanted to be done. Around 8:45 p.m., dusk creeping in, I passed mile 13. The music started again, this time instantly, as if it had been waiting for me. I didn't stop, didn't even look in the mirror, just pressed the gas and stared ahead. But then, half a mile later, my headlights caught something. A figure, standing on the shoulder. I braked automatically, eyes squinting. It was a woman. She wore a long red dress and no shoes. Her hair hung wet over her face like she'd just stepped out of a river. She didn't wave, didn't move, just stared at me as I passed. I kept driving, but in my side mirror, I swear to God, she stepped into the road. No expression, no fear, just stepped out, arms limp, like she wanted to be hit. I didn't stop until I hit the intersection at 44. Pulled into a gas station and just sat there, hands shaking, barely able to breathe. That was the first night I dreamed about the singing. It wasn't just music anymore. It was voices, whispers in Spanish, layered and overlapping, echoing like they were trapped in a well. I don't speak much, but I recognized a few words, names, dates, and the word regresa, return, over and over, return, return, return. I called in sick the next day, and the day after that. Ray didn't push. I think he knew. A week later, one of our newer techs, Carlos, was assigned a loop that included FM 666. He didn't come back. They found his truck 3 miles past mile marker 13, doors wide open, engine still running. No sign of him, no blood, no struggle. Just 2 sets of footprints in the ditch, circling like a dance. They closed that stretch of road for repairs the next week. But we all knew what that meant. I quit the job not long after, moved north, took a job in an office. I don't drive back roads anymore, but sometimes, especially in August, when the wind's just right and the sky's heavy, with heat, I swear I still hear the singing, soft, distant, waiting. If you ever find yourself south of Corpus and you see a sign for FM 66, don't take it, especially not after dark. No matter what the music promises, you won't be the one driving by. You'll be the one standing there, in the dress shoes, circling forever. I saw it on the 3rd day, but the story starts earlier than that, at least a week before I set foot in the desert. It was late October 2022. I remember because the heat in Austin had finally started to dip into something close to autumn, and I was desperate to be out of the city. The constant sound of traffic, the way the neighbors' porch lights never turned off, the burnt chemical smell of asphalt in the morning. It had all started to press down on me like a weight I couldn't name. I work remotely for a small tech firm out of Dallas, mostly code maintenance and QA testing. Long hours but quiet ones. My boss was one of those startup types who wore beanies in summer and called PTO mental reset windows. I told him I needed one. He gave me a week without a fuss, so I drove west. I'd been to Big Bend once before, years ago with a college buddy. We camped for 2 nights and left early because he got heat stroke, but I remembered the sky, that impossible sky, and how the stars looked like frost across black glass. I wanted that again, something real, something empty. I planned it down to the hour, a 6-day solo trip starting just north of Terlingua. I'd hike into the Chisos Mountains, camp along the Dodson Trail, loop back, and spend a night in a rented Airstream before heading home. Mind you, pack was light. I brought enough water plus iodine tablets and a filter. No gun, just a knife and bear spray. The weather was supposed to be clear the entire week, highs in the low 80s, lows in the 50s. Ideal. I got into Terlingua around 4 p.m. on a Monday, October 24th. The sun was a copper coin hanging just above the mountains, and the sky had that strange silvery haze that makes everything look older. Dust clung to my boots the second I stepped out of the car. Terlingua isn't much. A ghost town-turned art commune full of sun-bleached RVs and rusted sculpture parks. There's a bar, a gift shop, and a few weathered houses that look like they're held together with spit and prayers. I grabbed dinner at the Starlight Theater, brisket tacos and a shiner, nodded to a pair of leathery old men in cowboy hats, and slept in the back of my SUV just outside town. That night was the first time I heard it. At around 3:30 a.m., I woke up to the sound of something tapping, not scratching, not knocking, just tapping, repetitive, delicate, like fingertips on glass. I sat up, heart pounding, expecting to see someone peering in through the fogged windows. But there was nothing, just desert and brush and that huge, endless night. I climbed out, shined my headlamp around the SUV, and saw only a set of tracks, faint, wind-smeared, leading away toward the rocks. They looked like dog tracks, too narrow to be a coyote, too close together for a stray. I tried not to dwell on it. There are wild dogs out there, feral ones. I went back to sleep, the first. 2 days of hiking were uneventful. Long, hot hours under a pale blue sky, the kind where even the clouds seemed bleached. The Chisos Mountains loomed in the distance like the broken teeth of something long dead. I passed maybe 3 other hikers in total, all headed the opposite direction. Everyone was friendly, tired, sunburned. I kept to the trail. Ate granola, beef jerky, and dried mango. Camped at a spot overlooking a dry arroyo. Woke once during the night to the sound of rocks falling somewhere downhill, but saw nothing. The kind of trip you hope for. the kind that empties your head. Then came day 3, October 27th. I broke camp early, around 6 a.m. The air was sharp and cold, and a band of gold was just beginning to crack along the edge of the mountains. I hiked in silence, loving the way. The desert seems to hold its breath before the heat hits. It was around 8:45 a.m. when I saw the thing. I was crossing a narrow pass between 2 low ridges, dry, rocky terrain with waist-high scrub on either side. There was a slight rise ahead of me, and the trail curved left around a bend of eroded stone. I remember hearing a bird, a single sharp caw that cut off mid-note, and then I rounded the bend. It was in the middle of the trail. At first, I thought it was a dog, a big one, furred, mottled brown and black, with patches of skin showing through like it had mange or had been burned. It was crouched low, back legs bunched, front limbs braced on the dirt like it had just landed hard. I couldn't see its face, yet, just its shoulders and back, the way the spine jutted too sharply under the skin. I stopped walking. I didn't move or speak, just watched, and then it stood up. Not all the way. It rose slowly, painfully, with a strange hesitation, like it had to remember how. Its hind legs straightened first, then its back arched, then its front limbs, arms now, pulled in close to its chest. It moved like a puppet pulled upright by invisible strings, jittery, off balance. It was wrong. Its proportions weren't human, but they were close enough to make me sick. Its arms were too long, its hands too large, fingers splayed wide with what looked like claws or nails that had grown too far and cracked. Its head lolled slightly to one side, and when it turned to look at me, its mouth was already open, too wide, far too wide. I didn't scream, I didn't move. Its face looked stretched, like skin pulled over a broken mask. The eyes were small and dark and glassy, like they didn't quite belong, and its mouth, Jesus, it just stayed open, a slack, toothy grin full of flat yellow teeth. It looked like it was smiling, but it didn't feel like a smile. It took one step toward me, not fast. Just one slow, dragging step. That's when I ran. I didn't think, didn't check my pack or look for markers. I just turned and sprinted back the way I came, lungs burning, gravel flying from under my boots. I didn't stop until I couldn't breathe, until I dropped behind a ridge and lay there in the dirt, chest heaving. When I finally looked back, the trail behind me was empty. No sound. No movement. I convinced myself it was heat stroke, a trick of the light. Some kind of animal I'd startled, seen wrong in the adrenaline rush. I told myself this over and over again as I hiked the rest of the day in a wide, pointless loop, eventually setting up camp off-trail near a cluster of boulders. I didn't eat that night. Couldn't. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I didn't sleep much either. Something kept circling the camp. Not close, just far enough that I couldn't see it clearly. But I could hear it. Soft footsteps crunching. Once every few minutes. Always shifting. Always just outside the beam of my flashlight. And twice, I heard that same tapping. Like fingers on stone. The next morning I packed up and took the fastest possible route back to my car. I didn't look behind me. I didn't stop for water. When I finally saw the dusty gravel lot where I'd parked, I could have cried. There were new scratches on the hood, thin, jagged lines about 6 inches long, 5 in a row, like claw marks. I drove straight to Alpine, rented a cheap motel room, locked the door, slept for 12 hours straight and woke up at dusk. And that should be where it ends, but it followed me, or something did. Back in Austin, things started going missing. Little things, socks, utensils, my backup key. I thought I was just tired, shaken. Then I started hearing it again. The tapping, once on the bathroom window, once at the glass patio door. Always at night, always soft, like it didn't want to be heard. And once last week I found a set of prints in the backyard dirt. Dog-shaped, barely, too long in the heel, too narrow at the toe. I haven't hiked since. I don't go outside at night. And sometimes if I look out the second-story window after midnight, I swear I can see something at the edge of the neighbor's yard. Hunched, waiting, smiling, too wide. I drive for a living, mostly food delivery, sometimes rideshare if it's a slow night. San Antonio's a weird place to navigate at night. It's big but sprawled out, like someone took a city and stretched it over too much land. Loop 1604, for those who don't live here, is a huge loop highway that skirts the outer edges of the city. I've probably driven it 1,000 times. It's mostly uneventful, except during what some drivers call the dead time. I thought it was just another one of those internet things. You know, like backroom stories or glitch in the Matrix. Nonsense. I first heard about it from a guy I met in a Whataburger parking lot. Another driver, older than me, who chain-smoked and talked with that flat Texan drawl like everything bored him. "Don't drive 1604 after 2:10, he told me, tossing a half-lit cigarette. "Ain't worth it. GPS craps out and phones freeze. If you see headlights behind you, don't look in your mirrors too long." I thought he was full of it. Some people talk like that just to scare you. But he said it deadpan, like he'd seen it himself. That conversation didn't come back to me until a couple months later on a hot August night. August 13th to be exact. A Tuesday technically, though it still felt like Monday night. I'd started my shift around 6 p.m. and was doing Uber Eats deliveries from downtown to Stone Oak. It was humid, one of those sticky nights where the inside of your car fogs up just from your own breathing. Around 2:05 a.m., I got pinged for a final delivery out near Bulverde Road, just off the north side of Loop 1604. Small McDonald's order, $5 with tip. I wasn't thrilled, but I figured I'd take it, then head home. I pulled onto the loop heading east. Traffic was non-existent, just a few headlights in the distance behind me. The music was low, something ambient from a Spotify playlist I barely listened to. My GPS said to stay on the loop for 6 miles. That's when things started to feel off. At first, I thought it was just me being tired. The clock on the dash read 2:12 a.m. I blinked hard a few times. I'd done this shift a dozen times before, but something in the air felt thicker, heavier, like the pressure dropped all at once. I glanced at my phone mounted on the dash, and the map froze. The little blue dot, my car, stopped moving. The whole screen locked up. No signal. "Great," I muttered, tapping the screen. Nothing. I pulled the phone off the mount and toggled airplane mode on and off, thinking it would reset. Still nothing. I had full bars before I got on the highway, and now it said searching. Then the radio cut out. Just a low click and silence. I glanced at the screen. It still showed the track playing, but no sound. I turned the volume up. Nothing. At this point, I figured it was just a signal dead zone. Those happen, right? Especially around those wide, empty stretches of highway where the suburbs haven't quite filled in yet. Then I noticed the car behind me. It was far off at first, just a pair of headlights cresting the curve maybe half a mile back. I didn't think anything of it until I glanced in my mirror again a few seconds later, and it was closer. Not speeding. Just closer. I changed lanes. The car behind me did the same. I checked my mirror again and got a better look. Dark-colored sedan, probably black or dark blue. Older model. Hard to tell with the headlights in my eyes. But the spacing of the lights was off. Too wide, maybe? And they had that yellowed, foggy look. Not LED, not modern. I turned off onto the Bulverde exit. The sedan followed. I felt that little squeeze in my chest, like when you realize you left your wallet somewhere. I told myself it was just a coincidence. There are only so many exits, and that one leads to a big cluster of neighborhoods. But the car didn't keep its distance. It stayed right behind me, closer than before. At the red light at the end of the ramp, I could see it better in the mirror. Something about the shape of it was wrong. The hood looked warped, like it had been in a wreck that never got fixed. And the windshield, I couldn't see the driver at all. It was like the glass was tinted pitch black. The light turned green. I made the right onto the feeder road. So did they. I started feeling that creeping cold sweat. The kind you get when your brain can't decide if you're in danger or just paranoid. My hands were slick on the wheel. I decided to make a few random turns, see if they kept following. First left, then a right onto a residential street. Slow speed. I turned my lights off for a moment. The headlights behind me disappeared too. No brake lights, no slowing down. Just gone. That should have been it. A fluke, a weird night. But then the lights reappeared in front of me. The same wide yellowed headlights, same too silent engine. The car wasn't moving. It was parked diagonally across the road, maybe 50 feet ahead. No driver visible. I slammed on the brakes. My car screeched to a stop. I fumbled for reverse. I didn't care if I hit a mailbox or ended up in someone's yard. I just wanted out. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, the road behind me was empty. Completely empty. And the car ahead was gone too. Not driving away, not turning off, just no longer there. The dash clock read 2:21 a.m. And then, just like that, my phone lit back up. GPS resumed. Music came back on. Signal returned. I sat there in the middle of that neighborhood road, breathing hard, music softly playing some track I didn't recognize. My body felt like it had been shocked. I thought about calling someone, but who do you call at 2:21 a.m. to say you're scared of a phantom sedan? I delivered the food, left it at the door, no interaction. I didn't take another order after that. Just went home, locked every door, and sat up until sunrise. A few days later, I went back online and searched for anything I could find. Reddit threads, driver forums, even old news articles, and I found it. Just scattered posts, most a few years old. They all said the same thing. Loop 1604, sometime after 2:13 a.m. Phones freeze, GPS fails. You'll see the car. It always follows. It never crashes. It never stops. Some people claim it's a ghost driver. Others think it's something else. A time slip, a loop, a dead patch in reality. One post chilled me more than any other. If you see it once, you might be fine. Just keep driving. Don't pull over. Don't try to look inside. But if you stop, or if it stops in front of you, then you're in it. The loop. It resets every time. Same time, same place. You won't notice unless you remember the details. I tried not to think about it. I even stopped driving at night for a while. But last week, it happened again. August 17th, 2:14 a.m. GPS froze, music cut out, headlights behind me. This time I didn't stop. I didn't turn off. I kept driving until the clock hit 2:23. It all came back online. But here's the thing. The second time, I saw something new. When I passed under one of the overpasses, I glanced up, just out of habit. You know how sometimes you check for animals or graffiti? There was a man standing up there, not moving, just standing, facing the highway, no car nearby, just standing under the yellow-orange floodlight, as still as a statue. Pale shirt, no face I could make out. Then he lifted his arm and pointed directly at me. I didn't sleep the next night, or the one after, because now I feel like it's waiting for me to come back, like something knows I saw it, and that next time, maybe I won't get out before 2:22. They call it the dead time on 1604. I think that's wrong. Dead things don't follow you home. It was Saturday, March 9th, 2024, the last day of spring break. I remember because I'd been looking forward to the trip all semester. My friend Connor and I had driven down to Marfa, Texas, to camp out near the Chinati Foundation and stargaze in one of the darkest night skies in the country. If you've ever been, you know how isolated it feels. Desert plains stretching for miles with scattered art installations and the occasional dusty town that looks like it hasn't changed since 1962. We'd spent 3 days there. No service, no internet. Just open sky and long, weird silences between the wind. We were both students at Texas State, me in environmental science, Connor in journalism, and it was our last year. This was sort of our final hurrah before graduation. We'd left Marfa around 6:30 a.m., planning to get back to San Marcos by late afternoon. It was cold that morning, not freezing, but enough to see your breath if you stepped out of the car. The sky was overcast, with heavy gray clouds clumping low over the desert like cotton soaked in dishwater, the kind of sky that makes everything feel muffled. Connor drove the first leg. I remember dozing off not long after we left, head leaned against the passenger window, a folded flannel shirt between me and the glass. I woke up around 8:45 a.m., somewhere east of Alpine. Nothing out there but road, scrub brush, and the occasional fence cutting across private ranch land. The air smelled like dust and sun-baked metal. I was sipping gas station coffee when I saw it for the first time. A black cargo van, no windows, no logos, matte paint, not the glossy kind you see on newer models. More like an older finish that had dulled from years of sun. It passed us on the left, going maybe 10 mph faster. I watched it in the side mirror until it was gone. No big deal, just a van. About 12 minutes later, it passed us again. Same van, same speed. I blinked, confused. I looked at Connor, but he didn't seem to notice. I didn't say anything. Maybe it had stopped for gas or something and passed us again. Still weird, though. We hadn't stopped or slowed down at all. I watched the rear view for a while after that, but didn't see anything behind us. 12 minutes later, 9:09 a.m., it passed us again. I felt it before I saw it, this heavy unease that hit me in the gut like I was looking at something I wasn't supposed to. I watched the van glide past us with its dead headlights and unmarked sides. No license plate on the back, just a blank rectangle where it should have been. "Dude," I said, "that's the third time that van's passed us." Connor glanced over. "What van?" "That black one. It's passed us 3 times in the last 30 minutes. He looked at the road ahead, squinting. I didn't see anything. I sat up straighter. "Are you messing with me?" "No," he said. I seriously didn't see a van. I stared out the window, heart thumping. I wasn't tired anymore. For the next 20 minutes, I didn't say anything. Neither did Connor. The hum of the tires filled the silence. The road stayed flat, stretching ahead into a gray horizon. At 9:21 a.m., the van passed us again. I leaned forward, twisting around in my seat to watch it fade into the distance. There was no driver. I swear on everything. The windshield was empty. No one in the front seat. No hands on the wheel. "Did you see that?" I barked, pointing. "What?" "The van. It passed us again, and there was nobody driving it." Connor looked over at me like I'd lost it. "There's no van, dude. You're freaking me out." My skin felt tight, cold. "You didn't see anything just now?" "No, just road." He pulled off at a rest stop outside Marathon. There was one other car there, an old beige sedan, and an older woman sitting on the bench drinking something from a thermos. We parked near the far end and got out to stretch. The wind was dry and sharp, blowing little needles of sand across the pavement. I kept looking up the highway in both directions, but there were no vehicles in sight. "Switch?" Connor asked, holding out the keys. "Yeah," I said. I figured maybe driving would help shake the unease. As I took the driver's seat, I noticed something weird. The mileage hadn't changed since Connor filled up in Alpine. It still read 487.2. That was about 45 minutes ago. I didn't say anything, not yet. We pulled back onto the road around 9:33 a.m. At 9:45 a.m., the van passed us again. It moved silently, gliding past like a shadow, no engine noise, no tire sounds. As it passed, I got a better look inside. The cabin was empty again. No driver, no passengers, just 2 seats and a wide open back. I slowed the car down and pulled onto the shoulder. Connor looked at me. "Dude, what are you doing?" "You didn't see that?" "What?" I just stared at him. "The black van. It passed us again." "You really didn't see anything?" He rubbed his face. "No, man. Are you okay?" We sat there for a while. No other cars passed us in either direction. The landscape around us felt still, like the desert had decided to hold its breath. I turned off the engine, just sat there, hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on the rear view. Nothing. Then, at exactly 9:57 a.m., the black van passed us again. We were pulled over, completely stopped, engine off. It still passed. It moved along the shoulder beside us, the same steady speed. Again, no driver, no tags, no markings. Connor jumped. Oh, okay, I saw it that time. He scrambled to unbuckle and spun around in his seat. What the hell is that? He said, voice tight. I didn't answer. I started the engine and peeled back onto the highway trying to catch up, but within 30 seconds, it was gone again. Not over the horizon, just gone. Like we'd driven into a different frame of film. Maybe it's some kind of optical thing, Connor said, talking fast. Like a mirage? Or a projection? From where? I said. There's nothing out here. We drove in silence for a long time after that. The miles ticked by. The clouds above grew darker. By the time we passed Sanderson, it had started to drizzle, light rain that smeared across the windshield in gray streaks. The radio had stopped picking up any stations. Just static now. Even my phone, which had shown 1 bar earlier, was displaying no service. I kept checking the clock. At 10:09 a.m., the van passed again. Then 10:21, 10:33. Every 12 minutes, without fail. Always passing on the left, always empty. It didn't matter how fast we went. I tried speeding up to 90 at one point, thinking we could at least break the cycle, get out of its reach. But it didn't change anything, like the highway was stuck in a loop. I noticed something else too. Every time the van passed, the sky got a little darker. Not like storm clouds, more like dusk creeping in hours too early. The landscape outside the car started to look less real. Colors dulled. The signs on the road were still there, but the words were wrong. One that used to say, Del Rio, 65. Miles now just said, stay in car. At 11:09 a.m., Connor threw up in his lap. He hadn't said a word for the last half hour, just stared ahead, mouth slightly open, as the van kept passing us again and again. When he finally turned to me, his eyes were bloodshot. Do you hear it? He whispered. I shook my head. Hear what? He pointed out the window. It's saying something, in the engine, every time it passes. I didn't hear anything. Just the wind. But the next time it passed, 11:21, I rolled down the window and leaned out. There was a sound, not a voice exactly, more like a scraping noise, wet and dry at the same time, like a broom dragging through sand and bone. Under that, something higher pitched, like a whisper filtered through a blown speaker. Connor covered his ears and screamed, "Make it stop, make it stop!" I pulled over again. We sat on the shoulder near a mile marker that had no number. The van didn't pass us that time. It just appeared in the rearview mirror, still moving, though when I looked behind us the road was empty. It was only in the mirror. I watched it get closer, 10 feet back, then 5. Then it was right behind us, just idling. Still no sound, still no driver. The side door slid open. Nothing came out. Connor started crying. He opened the passenger door and ran into the scrub brush. I yelled for him, but he didn't turn around. I never saw him again. I called the cops once. I got back to cell service hours later. I lied and told them we'd gotten separated near Del Rio. They put out a missing person report. His parents came down from Fort Worth to help search. There were helicopters, search dogs. Nothing. I didn't tell anyone about the van. No one would have believed me anyway. It's been 5 months now. I've moved back home to Austin. Finished. School online. I don't drive anymore unless I absolutely have to, but when I do, I still see it. Every 12 minutes, passing me on the left, empty, waiting. It happened on Friday, October 11th, 2019. I remember the date because it was the day before my cousin's wedding, and the forecast was unusually chilly for San Antonio. About 51 degrees by midnight, with a wind that felt sharp and out of place for Texas fall. That entire week had been restless, and I hadn't been sleeping much. Not nightmares or anything, just a strange heaviness I couldn't shake. It's easy to brush that kind of thing off when you're stressed about family events. That's what I told myself anyway. My name's David. I'm 34 now, born and raised in San Antonio. I work in HVAC, live alone in a one-bedroom duplex near Harlandale, and until recently, I wouldn't say I believed in anything paranormal. All those ghost stories we tell around here, the Donkey Lady Bridge, the woman in white on Zarzamora, the midget mansion, I chalked them up to urban legends and bored teenagers. That included the railroad tracks out south by Villamain and Shane Road, near the old Mission Espada. If you're from around here, you've heard of it, the so-called ghost tracks. The story goes that sometime in the 1930s or 40s, a school bus stalled out on the tracks there. An oncoming train couldn't stop in time and hit the bus, killing all the kids on board. Since then, locals say if you park your car on the tracks, in neutral, the spirits of the children will push you over, trying to save you from the same fate. Supposedly, people even sprinkle baby powder on the bumper and see tiny handprints after. Classic campfire stuff. I'd heard it all my life. So when my coworker Marco brought it up during a lunch break, I rolled my eyes. He was showing our younger tech, Isaiah, a video on his phone. Some grainy night footage of a car rolling across the tracks with no one touching the wheel. You ever try it, bro? Marco asked me, half chewing his breakfast taco. I laughed. No, and I'm not planning to. That whole story's fake. Look it up. The bus crash never happened. He shrugged. Still gives me the creeps. My Tio swears he saw handprints once. He don't lie. Isaiah was grinning, eager like a kid. Let's go tonight. I was already shaking my head. Pass. But then Marco smirked at me. What, you scared? And just like that, my pride got the better of me. Tell you what, I said, stuffing my trash in the bin. I'll go out there tonight, alone, and I'll film the whole thing. Nothing's gonna happen. Isaiah clapped his hands like I'd just agreed to wrestle a bear. I didn't plan to make it a big deal. Just a quick stop on the way home from picking up my suit at my mom's place. Drive out to the tracks, put the car in neutral, wait a minute, then post the video in the group chat and shut everybody up. It was already dark when I left my mom's around 9:30. The sky was cloudy and the moon was nowhere in sight. I had that stiff buzz of caffeine and too little sleep, but I was still clear-headed. I remember checking the dashboard. 61 degrees outside, low gas, but enough for the drive. I took Presa south, then looped down Villamain, passing Mission San Juan. No music, just the hum of tires on old asphalt. That part of town gets rural fast. Long stretches of empty road broken up by thick patches of trees and the occasional ranch fence. Not much light either, no sidewalks. A stray dog crossed the road at one point, and I tapped the brakes, watching. It vanished into the grass. When I pulled up to the crossing, there was no one else around. No cars, no teens, no flashlights or fog machines. Just me and the dark. The old signal post still blinked red, but the gates were long gone. Probably taken out after years of disrepair. I checked the time, 10:14 p.m. I set my phone on the dash and hit record. All right, I said, trying not to sound nervous. Here we are, the famous ghost tracks. Let's see what all the fuss is about. I pulled forward until I was right on the tracks, stopped the car, and slipped the gear into neutral. My engine idled for a few seconds, then I turned the key off. Silence. Not even crickets. Just the soft ticking of my cooling engine and the occasional gust of wind brushing past the windows. Then, movement. Not from outside, from the car. I felt it roll. Slowly at first, just an inch, then another, like someone was gently pushing from behind. My heart thumped. I let my hands hover above the steering wheel, just to prove to the camera I wasn't touching anything. The car kept moving. It rolled smoothly across the tracks, maybe 6 or 7 feet, then came to a stop just before the gravel shoulder dipped toward the ditch. I exhaled, part nerves, part surprise. Huh, okay, that's something. I killed the recording and sat there for a second, feeling like I'd just stepped into a magic trick with no punchline. Still, I was smiling. Maybe the road had a slope I didn't notice. Maybe the car's weight shifted weird. I wasn't ready to chalk it up to ghosts. Out of curiosity, I stepped out, walked around to the trunk, and checked the bumper with the flashlight on my phone. Nothing. No powder, no handprints. Just road grime and a dent I'd gotten backing out. Of my driveway last year, I was about to get back in when I heard it, faint, almost swallowed by the wind. A giggle, short, high-pitched, and distant. I froze. My light darted across the trees, the tracks, the brush behind the signal post. Nothing moved. I scanned the road in both directions. Empty. Could have been a bird. Or an animal. That's what I told myself. Then I heard it again. Closer. Another giggle. Then the sound of feet, small ones, running across gravel. I spun toward the tracks. Still no one. But the air felt colder now, like something had shifted. My breath fogged up in front of me, and my skin prickled with static. I opened the door, slid back into the car, and shut it a little too fast. I wasn't smiling anymore. The car started fine. I drove off without looking in the rearview mirror. When I got home, I didn't even review the video. I just left my phone on the counter and took a long shower. I told myself it was just nerves, overactive imagination. Maybe someone had followed me out there and was messing around in the dark. I didn't sleep well that night. I didn't tell Marco or Isaiah what I'd heard. Just sent the video of the car rolling and let them make their own assumptions. They were impressed, but not shocked. "Told you," Marco said. "Them kids don't mess around." A week went by, then two. The dream started on the third week. Not nightmares exactly, just off. Every night I'd find myself standing by the tracks. The same stretch of road, same blinking signal. Except in the dream it was always foggy. Thick, white fog that rolled in like smoke. I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. Sometimes I heard the train, low and distant. Sometimes it never came, but the worst ones were when I saw them. Kids, shadowy little figures standing just beyond the fog, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Their faces were always blurry, smudged, like someone had wiped away their features. I'd always wake up before anything else happened. Cold, sweaty, heart pounding. I stopped sleeping. Started drinking more than I should. Even missed a few service calls. Then, around mid-November, I got a call from Isaiah. "Hey, did you hear about that guy who went missing out by the tracks?" I sat up. "What guy?" "Some dude from out of town. He posted a video trying the Ghost Tracks challenge, YouTube or TikTok or something. But he never made it home. Cops found his car abandoned like a mile down the road, doors open, engine still, running." I didn't say anything. "You think it's real?" Isaiah asked. "No." I lied. That night, I rewatched my video, the one I filmed that night. I hadn't looked at it since I recorded it. At first, nothing seemed off. Just me talking, car on. The tracks, engine off, rolling forward. But as I scrubbed through the footage, something caught my eye. At 2 minutes, 17 seconds, right before the car stops rolling. A shape in the back window. Faint, blink and you'll miss it. A small face, pressed against the glass. Watching me. I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the floor. Screen still glowing. I didn't sleep at all. That was almost 6 years ago. I haven't gone back. I never will. But sometimes I still hear it. Late at night when the wind is just right and everything's quiet. The low whistle of a train that never comes. And if I'm really unlucky, if I've been drinking too much or sleeping too little, I swear I hear the giggle. Just outside the window. I'm not sure why I'm writing this now. Maybe it's just to get it out. Maybe I'm hoping someone else has seen it, or had the same feeling. I don't expect closure. I just want to stop thinking about it every time I drive after dark. This happened in late October of last year, around 9:45 p.m. on a Thursday night. The exact date was October 26, 2023. I remember because I had an early meeting the next morning and was pissed at myself for being out so late. I'd been up in Fayetteville visiting my sister. She'd just had a baby, and I promised her I'd drop off a hand-me-down car seat from my cousin. She was exhausted, and I stayed longer than I meant to, helping her put together a crib that had about 40 more screws than the box suggested. I live in a small town called Arab, Alabama, about an hour and 15 minutes south of Fayetteville. It's a sleepy little place with too many Dollar Generals and not enough street lights. The fastest way home was through Huntsville, cutting down Highway 231, which winds through hills and empty stretches of farmland. It had been drizzling on and off all evening, just enough to coat the road in a reflective slick that messed with my headlights. By the time I passed through Huntsville, the rain had slowed to a thick mist. I'd just gotten through the last stretch of lights near the Walmart Supercenter on Memorial Parkway when I noticed how quiet the road had become. Barely any traffic. Just a few tail lights way ahead of me, and no one behind. A dense fog was rolling in. Not unusual for this time of year, but this wasn't the typical low-sitting fog that just blurs the tree lines. This was thick, almost like smoke. It pooled in dips in the road and hung in the air like it had weight. By the time I got a few miles past Lacey's Spring, it was almost hard to see more than 20 feet ahead. My high beams only made it worse, so I flicked them off and slowed down to about 35. Everything was dead quiet. No music, no podcasts, just the rhythmic squeak of my windshield wipers and the sound of my tires humming over the wet asphalt. At some point, I noticed something strange. You know that feeling when you know there should be sound, like insects or distant engines. But there's just nothing. That hollow kind of silence that almost hurts your ears. That's how it felt. Even the occasional flicker of light from a farmhouse or gas station seemed muted, like I was driving through a bubble. I told myself it was just the fog messing with acoustics. Maybe it was thicker than it looked. Maybe I was just tired. I was about 10 miles south of Huntsville proper, coming around a gentle curve near an old abandoned fireworks stand. The one with the half-collapsed roof and graffiti that says God sees in spray paint. When I saw the headlights, they appeared suddenly. No gradual brightening, no distant glow. Just two beams cutting clean through the fog, coming straight at me in my lane. I slammed on the brakes and swerved into the shoulder. My heart was pounding. I remember gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles popped. The other car was flying, easily going 70 or more, and heading right for me. But just before impact, the headlights vanished. No crash, no passing vehicle, nothing. I sat there halfway in a drainage ditch, panting. The only sound was my hazard lights clicking. I waited. 5 seconds, 10, a full minute. I kept looking in my mirrors, waiting to see brake lights in the fog, or hear the thump of a wreck. But it was like the car had never been there. Eventually, I got back on the road and started driving again, slower this time, watching the fog for any sign of motion. My stomach was twisted into knots, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe I'd seen my own headlights reflected back somehow, or the fog had warped things. But I know what I saw. Headlights. Oncoming. Too bright, too real. A few miles later, I passed an old truck pulled off to the side of the road. A man in a rain jacket stood beside it, looking at the tree line with a flashlight. I slowed a bit, half considering stopping to ask if he was okay, but something about the way he was standing made me keep moving. He didn't look at me as I passed, just stared into the woods like he was waiting for something to come out. After that night, I didn't talk about it to anyone. I didn't want to sound dramatic. I figured it was a weird hallucination brought on by exhaustion and bad weather, but then it happened again. This time in December. Same stretch of road just past the fireworks stand. It was later, around 11 p.m. I was coming back from a late shift, and once again the road was empty. The weather had been clear all day. But right around that same bend, a patch of fog bloomed like it had been waiting there. I felt that same pressure in my ears, that same silence. And then, the headlights. They came on instantly, like someone flicked a switch. Closer this time. I barely had time to react before they were right on top of me. But again, nothing. I braked hard, skidded a little, heart hammering, and again, no crash, no car, no sound. I checked behind me. No lights, nothing in the ditch. I even got out and stood on the side of the road, waiting for a car to pass, thinking maybe someone had veered off. But the road was empty in both directions. That night, I took a long detour home, In the weeks that followed, I started looking up traffic reports, checking for accidents or fatalities along that stretch of road. But nothing recent popped up. Most of the reports were from years ago. There was one about a 3-car pileup in 2004 and another about a teenager who ran off the road in 1998. But nothing matched my nights. I also started checking forums. Weird, I know, but I figured if I'd seen it, someone else must have. That's when I found a thread, buried deep in a Huntsville area subreddit from 2016. It was a short post, just a guy asking if anyone else had seen the phantom headlights south of town. The replies were a mess, half jokes, half urban legends. One guy said it was swamp gas. Another said it was a reflection from Redstone Arsenal. But a few replies caught my attention. One user wrote, "I used to deliver medical supplies. Saw them twice, same spot. Swore it was a car about to hit me. Nothing there. Haven't driven that way since." Another said, "People say it's a residual echo from a wreck that happened back in the 90s. Something about a drunk driver going the wrong way." My uncle said they never found the second car. There was no follow-up. The post was locked, but it stuck with me. I started avoiding that route altogether, even when it added an hour to my trip. I told myself I was just being cautious, but I couldn't shake that feeling. Like the fog itself was watching. Like the headlights weren't just coincidence, but deliberate. In early February, I made the mistake of taking that road again. I was coming back from a late dinner in Huntsville with my girlfriend. She was asleep in the passenger seat, and we were laughing about something just before she dozed off. The weather was clear, no fog, not a trace. I let myself feel safe. We reached that bend. The fireworks stand was barely visible in the dark. Then the fog poured in like smoke. I didn't say anything. I just gripped the wheel tighter. My girlfriend shifted in her seat, mumbling something in her sleep. The silence dropped like a curtain. And then, the lights. But this time, something was different. They didn't just appear. They flickered, like a failing bulb, a twitch. Then steady. The car, or whatever it was, wasn't just facing me. It was drifting. Slowly, like it wasn't on the road but hovering above it. The beams didn't light up the fog like normal headlights. They cut through in jagged patterns, like searchlights. I swerved to the side again, pulling into a gravel turnout near an old rusted gate. My girlfriend woke up with a start, asking what was wrong. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was staring at the road. Because this time, I saw something in the lights. Not a car. Not exactly. Just a shape. It looked like the outline of a vehicle, but blurred, faded, like something between real and not real. The lights flickered again, and the shape folded in on itself, vanishing like a puff of smoke. The fog closed in seconds later. We sat there for a long time. My girlfriend kept asking if we hit something. I lied, said I thought I saw a deer. When we got home, I didn't sleep. I kept seeing those lights, that flicker, the way the shape seemed to fold like a piece of paper. I haven't taken that road since, but I keep hearing stories. A coworker told me about a friend who wrecked near Lacey's Spring. Said he swerved to avoid a car that came out of nowhere in his lane, but no one else reported seeing anything. Another neighbor said their daughter saw lights in the fog one night and refuses to drive alone now. I don't think it's a ghost. Not in the classic sense. I think it's something else. A moment trapped in the fog. A wrong turn in time. Something bleeding through. Whatever it is, it wants to be seen. And every time someone slams their brakes and swerves, it gets a little closer. If you're ever driving south of Huntsville on a foggy night, and you see headlights where they shouldn't be, don't stop, don't slow down, don't look directly at them, because I think it notices. And next time, it might not vanish. It might be real. It was July 6th, 2023, a Thursday. I remember because it was the day after my wife's birthday, and we'd had a small fight that morning. Not about anything huge, just one of those married couple nitpicks that starts with, "You always forget to," and spirals into you both walking away silently, each pretending not to care. I had to drive to Houston later that day for work, and I left earlier than I needed to. I told her I was avoiding traffic, but I was really just avoiding sitting at the kitchen table and pretending to enjoy my eggs while she stared at her phone. I took the back roads. That's something I've done since I was a teenager, ever since I learned to drive. I like the long, winding two-lane highways through the East Texas pines, where FM roads blur past cattle gates and rusted tractors. There's something comforting about old fence posts and the sudden unexplained sight of a single porch light in the middle of nowhere. It feels like America the way it used to be, or the way people like to pretend it was. The weather was that sticky kind of hot where the sky looks like faded denim and the heat just hangs there, pressing down like a thumb on your neck. It hadn't rained in weeks, and the grass along the ditches had turned that brittle brown, like hay left out too long. I was somewhere just east of Lufkin, maybe 30 minutes south of Nacogdoches, when I saw the sign, a green metal one, bent slightly, at the bottom like it had been clipped by a truck bumper. It stood just past the tree line, nestled between two battered telephone poles with peeling white paint. Welcome to Corral, Est, 1874, Pop, 681. I slowed down without thinking. I hadn't heard of Corral before, and I've lived in Texas my whole life. I pulled over. Not sure why, but something about the sign caught me. Maybe it was the way it leaned, or how the lettering seemed too new compared to the rust on the pole. Or maybe I was just looking for a distraction. Anything to stay on the road a little longer and let the morning cool off. I opened my app, and got nothing. Full bars, no internet, not uncommon out here. I tried searching the town name, Corral TX, nothing. No Wikipedia entry, no Google Maps result, no weather info. Weird, but again, not impossible. Some of these tiny towns aren't even incorporated, and their online presence is basically zero. So I turned the car off and stepped out. I remember how quiet it was. Not the kind of quiet you notice in the city. I mean still, like the air itself was listening. No cicadas, no birds, just wind rattling the dry trees. I looked down the road. There was a turnoff just ahead, one of those small county roads with a faded white street sign, CR 1036. I got back in the car, curious, and turned down it. It wasn't long before the trees opened up and I saw what passed for a town. A two-pump gas station with the lights off, a diner with a faded mural of the Texas flag, and across from it, a brick post office with a flag at half-mast, though I couldn't remember any national tragedy that week. I slowed as I passed. No cars, no people, no sounds. The only sign of life was a dog, thin, patchy, lying in the shadow of a phone booth. It didn't even lift its head as I passed. Something about the buildings didn't sit right. They looked preserved, not just empty, like a movie set between takes. The diner had tables inside, still set. I saw a glass of water on one, a real glass, not a prop. Beads of condensation still clinging to the side. I pulled into the gas station, lot, and killed the engine. I remember reaching for the door handle and hesitating. The moment I did, my rearview mirror tilted on its own. I know how that sounds. I know mirrors don't tilt, but this one did. Slowly, it angled itself down toward the back seat. No one was there. I heard a sound then, soft, like a distant radio. A voice maybe. But I couldn't tell where it came from. Not the station, not my phone, just a hum in the air. That was enough for me. I put the car in reverse, turned around, and drove straight back the way I came. I passed the same road signs, same turn, same green sign. Only it didn't say, "Welcome to Corral" this time. It said, "You were just here." Same bent post, same spot between the telephone poles, just new words. I drove faster. I didn't stop again until I hit the edge of Lufkin. Civilization, a Whataburger, a grocery store, people. I pulled into the Walmart parking lot and parked under a light. I just sat there for a while, watching shoppers go in and out, trying to calm down, telling myself I must have read it wrong, misremembered, glanced too fast. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone switched out the sign letters, but it didn't feel like a prank. It felt directed. That night I slept in a Marriott downtown. I didn't go back home to my wife. I called and told her I had an early meeting and needed to be closer to the office. But I didn't sleep much. I kept seeing that mirror angle down, kept thinking about the condensation on the glass at the diner, how recent it looked, how cold it must have been in there. The next morning, I tried looking up Corel again. Still nothing. No census data, no town website, no news articles. I even asked a coworker who grew up around Nacogdoches if he'd ever heard of it. Corel? Nah. You mean Carrollton? No, I said. East Texas. Little place. Near CR 1036. He just shrugged. Sounds made up. I told myself I'd imagined the second sign, or misread it. But the feeling stuck with me, like a splinter under the skin. You can forget it's there, but every so often it shifts, and it stabs just right. 2 weeks later, on July 20th, I tried to find it again. I left on a Sunday. Told my wife I needed space, which wasn't exactly a lie. She didn't fight it. I retraced my path. Same backroads. Same long stretches of pine. Nothing. I passed CR 1036. No green sign, no turnoff. Just trees, no diner, no gas station, no Corel. I slowed the car and turned around, thinking I missed it. Drove back a quarter mile. Still nothing. I pulled off and got out, looking for the holes in the ground where a sign might have been. Nothing. No pole stubs, no bolts. Just red dirt and scrub. I stood there for a long time, just staring at the trees. Then I noticed the dog. Same one. Mangy. Black and brown patches, standing between two pines maybe 20 yards away, looking at me. Its head cocked once, slow. Then it turned and walked into the woods. I drove home, and I tried not to think about it. I told myself again. Maybe it had been a dream, or a stress hallucination. I looked up heat stroke symptoms. I even made an appointment with a neurologist. She ran some tests. Nothing. Brain was fine. But last week, I saw the sign again. August. 3rd, 7:12 p.m. Sunset light pouring across the dashboard like syrup. I was driving near Jasper, 2 hours east of where I'd seen it before. Nowhere near CR 1036. There it was. Same green, same bent post. Welcome back to Corel. You left something behind. I didn't stop. I didn't slow. I just stared at it in the mirror as it vanished behind me. The next day, I noticed something strange. My bathroom mirror was off-center. I hadn't touched it. I asked my wife if she had. She said no. The day after that, the rearview mirror in my car had tilted again when I came out of the grocery store, pointed right at the back seat. And this morning I found a note on my passenger seat. Small torn notebook paper. Smelled like gasoline. In handwriting that wasn't mine. The diner is waiting. I haven't told my wife. Haven't told anyone else. I don't think it would help. But I keep waking up with condensation on my windows, inside. And twice this week, I've heard a voice in the early morning, right before dawn, whispering from the hallway. You were just here. I don't think Corel is a town. I think it's a place that waits. It doesn't care about maps or roads. It finds you, or maybe you find it once, and that's enough. I don't know what I left behind, but I think it wants me to come get it. I think next time I might not have a choice. If anyone's heard of Corel or seen that sign, please let me know. I don't want to go back alone. It was October 12th, 2022, a Wednesday. The kind of day that just feels like filler. Overcast, mid-60s, with a steady drizzle coming down that never really turned into rain. I was 3 weeks into a long-haul job from Virginia to Arizona, moving furniture for a couple that had decided to start fresh somewhere warmer. I'd been sleeping in the back of my truck most nights, but that afternoon I just needed to get off the road. I was tired, wired, and oddly anxious, even though nothing had really happened to warrant it. Around 3:40 p.m., I was driving west on I-20, through Alabama, somewhere between Anniston and Talladega. If you've ever driven that stretch, you know how empty it feels. It's not isolated in the way the desert is. There are still trees, signs of life, gas stations here and there. But there's something weird about it. It's the kind of road that makes you feel like you've missed something important. 100 miles back, I was getting low on gas and needed to stretch my legs. I passed an exit marked Kelton 1 mile and figured it was as good a stop as any. I pulled off and followed the signs for a gas station, and about 2 minutes later I saw the red and white awning of a place called Miller's Fuel and Food. It wasn't one of those modern stations with LED signs and a dozen pumps. This was old school. 2 double-sided pumps under a rust-streaked awning, the kind that made a low metallic groan in the wind. There were a few pickup trucks parked in front of the convenience store, which was attached to a faded brick building that might have been a garage at some point. No big logos, no digital price signs, just regular 3.29 painted in red block letters on a board nailed to a pole. I pulled up and shut off the engine. The smell of wet asphalt hit me as soon as I opened the door. It was quiet, not eerily so, just rural quiet. A few birds in the distance, the soft hiss of tires on wet pavement when a car passed on the nearby road. The place looked dated but not abandoned. Lights on inside, a "We're open" sign hanging a little crooked on the glass door. As I stepped out, a guy in a red work shirt with Miller stitched over the pocket waved from behind the window. Maybe mid-60s, heavy-set, white beard. Looked like Santa Claus if he smoked menthols. I nodded back and started filling up. Everything about the station felt like it had been frozen in time around 1987. The pump dials clicked over manually, and the rubber handle was cracked from years of sun exposure. Once I'd topped off, I went inside to grab a coffee and a snack. The bell over the door chimed when I walked in, and a wave of warm, dusty air hit me. The place smelled like old carpet, burnt coffee, and that weird plastic scent you only get from ancient candy displays. There was a small counter near the back, and the man I'd seen, Miller I assumed, stood up from behind it. "Afternoon," he said, voice rough but friendly. "Driving through?" "Yeah," I said. "Heading west. Just needed gas and a break." He nodded. "You picked a good place. Weather's been miserable all week. Coffee's fresh if you want some." The pot on the burner looked like it had been there since breakfast, but I poured a cup anyway. He didn't charge me for it. I grabbed a pack of crackers, paid in cash, and we made some small talk. He asked where I was from, if the roads up in Virginia were as bad as the ones down here. Nothing weird, just polite, casual conversation. He had a deep southern drawl but spoke clearly, like he was used to talking to strangers. He told me his family had owned the station since the 60s. "Don't get a lot of folks stopping off anymore," he said. "They built that new Shell station down the highway. Most people want bright lights and touch screens." I laughed. I kind of like the old school vibe. Reminds me of places my dad used to stop when we took road trips. His face changed a little at that. Not in a bad way, just a flicker of something behind his eyes. Nostalgia maybe, or something heavier. "Well," he said after a moment, "you be careful out there. These roads have a way of losing people if they ain't paying attention." He said it like a joke, with a small smile, but it stuck with me. I got back in the truck and pulled out. As I merged back onto I-20, I glanced in the mirror. The station was still there, lights glowing faintly under the gray sky, looking exactly like a postcard from the 1980s. That should have been the end of it. But the next day, around the same time, maybe 4 p.m., I realized I'd left my wallet. I'd paid in cash, but I remembered setting it down on the counter when I poured my coffee and never picking it back up. Dumb, I know, but I was running on fumes and barely thinking straight. I'd only gone about 180 miles west, so I turned around and started driving back. Took me a couple hours, but I figured it was better than canceling all my cards and dealing with that mess on the road. I got off at the Kelton exit again. Same signs, same trees. The sky was clearer that day, a little warmer. But when I pulled into the lot where Miller's Fuel and Food had been, I slammed on the brakes so hard I nearly stalled the engine. It was gone. Not closed, not boarded up. Gone. What was left was a blackened, skeletal structure. Just the charred remains of a building, twisted steel beams, and the faint outline of the old pumps. Everything was covered in ash. The ground itself looked scorched, like it had been on fire for days. I just sat there, staring. Eventually, I got out, walked around. There was no one else nearby, no trucks, no people. Just that smell. Not like fresh fire, but something older, deeper. Burnt insulation, melted rubber, a hint of something sweet and rotten, like fruit gone bad. I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe I'd made a wrong turn or hallucinated the place entirely, but that didn't make sense. I had a receipt. It was still in my cup holder. Miller's Fuel and Food, Oct 12, 2022, 3:47 p.m., 2814. Gas 0.00, coffee 1.25, crackers cash. Paid attendant, MIT was printed on one of those old thermal printers, the kind that fade if you leave them in the sun too long. I held it up, just staring at it like it might change in my hands. I ended up driving into Kelton proper, just a small town about 10 minutes off the highway. Found the sheriff's office. I told them I was looking for Miller's Fuel and Food. The deputy behind the counter, a younger guy with a buzz cut and a Mountain Dew on his desk, gave me this blank look. "That place burned down in 1981, he said. "Why you asking?" I laughed. I didn't mean to. It just came out, this nervous bark of disbelief. "No," I said. "I was there yesterday, talked to the guy who ran it, got gas, got a coffee." He tilted his head. "You sure you're talking about the one off exit 212, little red and white station? That place caught fire 40 years ago. Arson. They never rebuilt." I didn't know what to say. I showed him the receipt, and his expression changed. Not scared exactly, just uncomfortable, like he was trying to remember something he didn't want to. He excused himself and left the room for a while. When he came back, he handed me my receipt and said, "If I were you, I'd just keep driving." I left. I didn't ask more questions. I didn't go back. I just got on the highway and drove until my hands cramped from gripping the wheel. That was almost a year ago. I still have the receipt. It's faded now, barely legible, but the date is still there, the time, the total, the name of the station. Sometimes when I'm driving that route again, I check the exit. I even pulled over once more during the day, just to make sure. The ruin is still there, collapsed even further now, just broken brick and weeds. No sign, no pumps, no Miller, but I still remember his voice. I still hear what he said right before I left that day. These roads have a way of losing people if they ain't paying attention. Lately, I've started to think he wasn't talking about the roads. It was September 3rd, 2022, a Saturday night. Hot, even after dark. That kind of muggy Arkansas heat that makes the air feel thick in your lungs, like you're breathing through cotton. I was visiting my cousin Danny in Texarkana, where he lives just past the city limits, out where the streetlights disappear and the crickets never stop screaming. I hadn't seen Danny in years. We were close as kids, but life has a way of pulling you in different directions. I'm from Dallas now, work some stiff job doing IT for a logistics company. He stayed local, never went to college, works at a tire shop during the day, and does minor engine repair out of his garage on weekends. He's the kind of guy who always has grease on his knuckles and half a cigarette tucked behind his ear. We sat out on his front porch that night with a cooler full of Coors Light, listening to cicadas and catching up. He had a Bluetooth speaker playing old country, low volume. The porch light flickered occasionally, not in a way that seemed meaningful at the time. We talked about family, high school, people we used to know. Around 11:30 p.m., the topic shifted to local ghost stories, not surprising, given the beer and the setting. He told me about the phantom hitchhiker out on Highway 71, the goat man of Fook, the lights in the woods near Red River. All the stuff you'd expect from rural Arkansas folklore. But then he said, "You ever heard of the Loop Road? The one they call the two-lane blacktop to nowhere?" I said no. He leaned back in his chair, took a long pull from his can, and stared off into the trees for a second. "It don't show up on any GPS," he said. "Not even on satellite. Used to be part of Old Bowers Road back in the 60s, or so I've been told." "But that stretch? The part out near the quarry?" People say it just keeps going if you turn onto it at the right time. Like, you never reach the end. You just loop around and around. Like one of those urban legends? I asked, more amused than anything. He nodded slowly. Except I've been on it twice. I laughed, but he didn't. Just looked at me, dead serious. The first time was back in high school. We were drunk, just trying to freak each other out. Drove out there, in my buddy Jeremy's Pontiac. We saw the curve, the sign, just like the story said. Then we started noticing the mile markers were repeating. Same patches of broken asphalt, same dead possum on the shoulder. And every time we looped, something was different. A little more off. Like one loop, our headlights didn't seem to reach as far. Next loop, the radio cut out. One time we passed an old gas station that wasn't there the time before. Just sitting there in the dark with no lights, no cars, no sign. He paused. The last time we looped, someone was walking on the side of the road, all alone. No flashlight, no reason to be out there, just walking. But when we passed them, they weren't facing the road. They were angled just slightly toward us, like they were already turning before we got there. I asked him if it was a prank. He shook his head. Didn't feel like one. The air got wrong, like pressure in your ears. You know that feeling? Yeah, I did. Anyway, after a few more beers and plenty of urging from me, mostly as a joke, we decided to go. I didn't believe any of it, but Danny had a rusty old 2004 Chevy Silverado with a tank full of gas and nothing to do the next morning. It was a hot night. No moon. Barely any clouds. The roads were empty. The only real sound was the gravel kicking up under the tires and the occasional owl. We drove west along Route 67, then turned off onto some smaller service road that branched into woods. After about 15 minutes, we came to a long stretch of narrow blacktop. 2 lanes, no shoulder, lined with pine trees that leaned in like they were eavesdropping. "This is it," Danny said. There was a faded metal sign on the right shoulder. It said County Road 321, but the 3 was almost worn away, and someone had spray-painted a crude smiley face over it. A cracked yellow line split the road, and the pavement itself was rough and uneven, like it hadn't been maintained in decades. We made the turn. Immediately, the headlights caught the shine of a mile marker, 0.5, half a mile, simple white stick, in the dirt. We kept going. It was dead quiet except for the hum of the engine. No streetlights, no signs of life, not even the sound of crickets anymore. At mile marker 1.0, I noticed something odd. The road curved left, then right, just gentle bends, but they looked familiar. I told myself it was just because we'd seen thousands of country roads like this growing up. But then we passed another mile marker, 0.5. Danny didn't say anything. He just kept driving. We hit the same stretch of cracked pavement again. Same bend, same hanging tree limb that reached too far over the road, like an arm trying to grab a passing car. Another mile marker, 1.0. The road curved, another 0.5, another 1.0. After the third loop, I turned off the Bluetooth speaker. No reason, just a sudden need for quiet. "You're messing with me," I said. "You took a turn somewhere and circled back." Danny didn't look at me. I didn't. It was then I noticed the windshield fogging, just slightly even, though the AC was off. The temperature inside the cab hadn't changed. I wiped it with my sleeve, but it came back within seconds. I looked at Danny. His hands were gripping the wheel tighter. Then something changed. The next time we passed the mile marker, it still said 0.5. But now there was a dent in the post, like it had been hit. I could swear it wasn't there before. The air outside looked darker somehow, not just from the trees, but like the headlights didn't cut through it the same way. We kept driving. On the 4th loop, the radio came on by itself, just static, low volume. Danny switched it off. Didn't say anything. Neither did I. 5th loop. The air smelled different, not like nature. It was chemical, sour like burnt plastic or an overheated battery. My tongue tasted it before I even realized I was breathing it in. 6th loop. There was a shape in the trees. I only saw it for a second, but it was tall. taller than any person should be. Pale, almost white, no clothes, no face that I could see, just standing there between the trunks, not moving. Seventh loop, I tried to get out. I don't know what came over me. Just a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread, like something inside me knew we couldn't keep going. I reached for the handle and pulled, but the door didn't open. Danny just kept driving, didn't even look at me. Eighth loop, we passed a car, pulled off to the side, no lights. Looked like an old brown station wagon, probably 80s era. Front end was smashed in, windshield cracked. No one inside. It was gone the next loop. 10th loop, something walked alongside us. Not on the road, in the woods, keeping pace with the truck, even at 45 miles an hour. I couldn't see it clearly. The trees broke up its shape. But the way it moved was wrong. Not smooth, not natural. It was too tall, too thin, and it moved like it didn't care how its limbs bent. I told Danny to turn around. He didn't respond. 11th loop, all the mile markers were gone. 12th, we passed ourselves. Same truck, same headlights, same angle, heading in the opposite direction. I saw myself in the passenger seat, staring wide-eyed. Danny swerved. We skidded, kicked up gravel, and nearly crashed into a tree. That's when we stopped. The silence that followed was massive. No wind, no bugs, no static. Just nothing. I told Danny we had to go back, reverse, turn around, anything. He just sat there, gripping the wheel, breathing hard. "I think we have to wait," he whispered. "For what?" "I don't know. Something has to let us go." We sat there for what felt like an hour. I don't remember what loop it was when the noise started. It was like footsteps on the pavement behind us, but slow, deliberate, not rushing, just walking toward the truck. Danny put it in drive. We didn't talk. We just drove forward into the dark. No more mile markers, no loops, no signs, just blacktop and pine trees and headlights that didn't reach far enough. Then, just like that, we were back. I don't even remember the exact moment it happened. 1 second we were in that strange, thick dark, and the next, we were at a gas station off Route 67. The real world looked almost too bright. We both felt sick, like vertigo, or waking up too fast from a deep sleep. That was 2 years ago. I haven't seen Danny since. He stopped answering calls a month later. His phone's disconnected now. His house went up for sale last year. Empty, abandoned, no forwarding address. I drove out there once. His place looked untouched, like he left mid-meal. Mail was stacked up. Porch light was still flickering. Sometimes, when I can't sleep, I look for that road on Google Maps. I trace every line around Texarkana, searching for that bend, that little metal sign, that curve in the trees. I've never found it. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear that static. Not from the radio, from somewhere behind me. Just quiet enough that I can't be sure it's real. And when I'm driving alone down an old country road, I never ignore the mile markers. Not anymore. It was Thursday, October 10th, 2019. I remember because I had just come back from a work trip in San Antonio and was taking the long route home to Marfa. My usual way would have been through I-10, but there was construction near Kerrville and Google Maps rerouted me through Highway 83 straight down through Laredo. It was already past 7:30 p.m. when I left the city, the sky in that weird half-light of Texas evenings, where the horizon burns orange but the land's already lost its color. I figured I could make it to Eagle Pass by 10, crash there, and finish. The drive in the morning. I've done long drives my whole life, grew up with them. Something about the drone of tires, the endless flatness of West Texas, has always felt more like home than my actual house. But that night, I felt off. Could have just been travel fatigue or the fact I'd skipped dinner, but I remember the first hour of the drive felt unusually heavy. Not just my eyes, the air, the sky was clear, dry. 82 degrees. I had the windows down for a while, just to feel the warm air move. It smelled like creosote and dust, like always. Nothing weird yet. Not really. I passed through Carrizo Springs a little after 9. Got gas, used the bathroom, grabbed some beef jerky and a Coke. The station attendant, this old man with a white mustache and watery eyes, asked me where I was headed. Told him Eagle Pass. He looked past me out toward the lot. "You taking 277? "Yeah." He wiped his hands on a rag and said, casual as anything, "Keep your windows rolled up past the bridge." I thought he meant bugs or something. Maybe bats. There's a river crossing just south of town. "All right," I said, probably gave him a weird look because he added, "It don't like to be heard." Before I could ask what he meant, he walked off into the back. I laughed it off. Texas small-town folks can be cryptic. I figured he was just messing with me. I hit the road again by 9:15. The moon had risen full and bright, casting long, pale shadows across the brush. Coyotes yipped in the distance. A couple of trucks passed me going northbound, but otherwise it was empty. I played a podcast to stay awake, something true crime, but about 10 minutes later the signal dropped and I got that garbled Bluetooth buzz before it cut out completely. Fine. I switched to FM. Static. All across the dial, just static. A low hiss. Then, as I passed mile marker 47, my ears popped. It was sharp, sudden, like the pressure dropped hard. I rubbed my ears, tried yawning, but it didn't help. I even pulled over for a second, stepped out to stretch and see if maybe the elevation changed or something, but it was flat as always. I was surrounded by nothing but mesquite, blacktop, and a sky full of stars. Back in the car, I rolled the windows up just in case. The gas station guy's words came back, vague and sticky in my brain. "It don't like to be heard." I turned the key. For a split second, when the engine came back to life, I thought, I heard something under the static on the radio. Not music, not voices, just a sound, like someone exhaling into a microphone. A long, soft breath. I turned the radio off completely. That's when I started to hear the whisper. At first, I assumed it was wind, but the windows were shut. It wasn't the AC either. This was faint, sibilant, almost like a trickle of steam. I leaned forward, trying to locate the source. It wasn't outside. It was inside the cabin. Close. I turned everything off, killed the lights, killed the engine. In the pitch-black silence of the car, it was louder. A whisper. Words, now. I couldn't make them out yet. Just fragments riding low under the noise in my head like water through a pipe. I held my breath and I swear to God I heard my name, not loud, not even clear, but my name, in the voice of my mother. Eric. My mom passed away in 2014. Cancer. I hadn't heard her voice in years, not since I deleted the last of her voicemails. I turned the car back on and floored it. The sound didn't stop. In fact, it got clearer the faster I drove, like it was trying to keep up, pressing against the inside of my skull. I started sweating, cold and sharp across my back. The hair on my arms stood up. I turned the radio back on, just to drown it out, but the static was louder than ever, hissing, buzzing, and underneath it, the whispers twisted and repeated. "Don't tell him. He doesn't know. It's under the house." My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I kept driving. No music, no podcast, no GPS. Just me and the darkness, and that awful growing voice that kept trying to crawl into my ear. My windows fogged up even though the AC was blasting. Then I saw it. A person, standing on the shoulder. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded a bit. I stopped maybe 20 feet ahead and looked in the rear view. He was still there. A man, or at least the shape of one, backlit by moonlight, thin, pale. No face that I could see, just blank, almost like he wasn't fully there. He didn't move, didn't react, just stood, arms limp at his sides. I didn't get out. I didn't even reverse. I put the car in drive and took off, tires spinning a little on the loose gravel at the edge of the shoulder. My chest was pounding. The whisper was louder now, insistent. It wasn't even hiding anymore. "He doesn't sleep anymore. It's your fault. She called for you. I started crying. Not even from fear at that point. Just pure panic. I drove 85 down that stretch for what felt like forever, but was probably only another few minutes. Then, all at once, my ears popped again. Just like that, the pressure lifted. The whisper vanished. The radio clicked back into a regular station, some Tejano music playing low. The air felt normal. I pulled over, shaking. Checked my phone. The time was 9:48 p.m. I'd lost 12 minutes. Maybe more. I can't say for sure. That whole stretch, that mile, maybe less, was gone from my memory except for the voice. I got to Eagle Pass by 10:20, found a cheap motel, and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I could go inside. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. The whisper was gone, but its memory sat in my bones like radiation. I didn't sleep. I kept the TV on volume low, just to keep some kind of noise in the room. Around 2 a.m., I must have dozed off. I had a dream. At least, I think it was a dream. I was standing in front of my childhood home in Odessa. Except it was wrong. Dead grass, windows blacked out like it had been abandoned for years, and I could hear something under the house, a scraping, slow and deliberate, like nails on wood. The front door opened on its own, and a voice, my mom's again, whispered, "You left him in the dark." I woke up drenched in sweat. There were 2 voicemails on my phone, both from an unknown number. No caller ID. The first was silent, just static. The second one, it was my name, whispered. I deleted them and left before the sun came up. For months afterward, I couldn't drive through that part of Texas. I took longer routes, paid for extra gas. Hell, I even stopped doing road trips for a while. Every once in a while, though, even now, I'll be in a quiet room or lying in bed with the lights off, and I'll feel that pressure shift in my ears. Like the air just changed density, and I'll hear it again. Very faint, like it's testing the distance. A whisper, soft and close. It never says the same thing twice, but the one that gets me the most. Don't stop the car. I haven't told anyone this. Not really. What am I supposed to say? That a stretch of highway tried to tell me something? That something out there wore my mother's voice like a mask? It's been almost 6 years now. I thought maybe it was sleep deprivation, stress, maybe even carbon monoxide. But this week, I found something. I was scrolling Reddit, on RR No Sleep of all places, and someone posted a short story about a mile near Eagle Pass where your ears pop and you hear voices. They deleted it 20 minutes later. I messaged the user, asked them where they'd heard about it. No reply. Their account was deleted the next morning. All they wrote at the end of the post was this: "It's called The Whisper Mile, and it only wants you to listen." I've been driving for Uber in Austin since late 2018, mostly nights. It fits my schedule better, and the fares are decent once the bars start to close around 1 or 2 a.m. I'm not some college kid or burnout. I'm 36, used to work in IT before the layoffs, and this gig just kind of stuck. I keep my Camry clean, playlist mellow, and rarely talk unless the rider initiates. I've had drunk passengers, people crying in my back seat, couples fighting. A guy once tried to light a blunt, and I had to pull over on Lamar and kick him out. But nothing, and I mean nothing, shook me like what I'm about to write. I've only told one other person, another driver I know who'd had a similar encounter, and they told me I should post it here. So here goes. It was Friday night. Well, technically Saturday morning, July 13th, 2024. I remember because it was just after 2:15 a.m., and my app had just pinged me for a pickup at the Cloakroom downtown. That bar closes at 2, and it's tucked right behind the Capitol building, in a weird little spot that always makes my GPS spin out. It was humid as hell, like sticky shirt, fogged glasses humid, and the sky was moonless. No breeze, no crickets. Just that thick Texas silence you get in the city after the traffic dies down. The name on the request was Riley. No profile picture. Rating wasn't visible. That's not totally unusual. Sometimes new accounts don't show the rating until a few rides in. Still, something about it made me pause. I pulled up behind the bar's small lot around 2:20. The place was emptying out. People stumbled toward their Ubers, laughing and yelling. But no one approached my car. I waited a couple minutes, then tapped the app to notify them I'd arrived. At 2:23, the back passenger door opened. I didn't hear footsteps, didn't see anyone in the mirror. I turned my head, expecting to greet them, but the back seat was already occupied. It was a woman, late 20s maybe, wearing a thin black dress that clung to her like it was damp. Her hair looked soaked, like she'd been caught in a downpour, but her skin was dry, pale, not goth pale, like hospital sheet white. Her eyes were fixed straight ahead, not looking at me or her phone. "Riley?" I asked. She nodded. Once. That was it. No smile, no "hey, thanks." Just that curt nod. Okay. Weird, but not the weirdest thing I'd dealt with. I started the ride. The destination was a spot up north near Runberg, about a 20-minute drive. I threw on some lo-fi beats, kept my eyes on the road, and tried not to glance at the rearview mirror too much. But it was hard not to. Every time I did, she was staring. Not at me. Just ahead. Dead center between the two front seats, like she was watching something on the dash that wasn't there. Her reflection in the mirror looked darker than the rest of the car, like she was sitting in her own pocket of shadow. About 5 minutes into the ride, I tried to make small talk, just out of habit. "Busy night for you?" No answer. "You okay back there?" Still nothing. I glanced in the mirror again, and for a split second I swear her mouth was slightly open, like she was breathing hard, but there was no sound. I should have ended the ride, pulled over, but something kept me going. Not fear exactly, more like a thick fog in my brain that made decisions feel distant, like I was on autopilot. We hit a red light at Guadalupe and 38th, right by that weird little used bookstore. I turned around in my seat. "Hey, if you're not feeling safe or something, just let me know. I can drop you at a gas station or..." She looked me in the eyes, just for a second, long enough for me to see they weren't reflecting any light. Not like a horror movie demon eyes kind of thing, just matte, like the black on a chalkboard or the inside of a tunnel, empty. I felt my stomach turn cold. Then the light turned green. I faced forward and drove. I didn't say another word. The next 10 minutes passed in silence. No music, no talking. I kept checking the app, watching the little blue route line crawl toward our destination. Here's the thing. Around 2:38, we reached the drop-off point, a cul-de-sac near a run-down apartment complex. I pulled up next to the curb, tapped end, ride, and turned to let her know we'd arrived. She was gone. Not stepped out quietly, gone. Not I looked away and missed it, gone. Just not there. The door hadn't opened. No sound, no shifting weight in the seat, nothing. I turned on the dome light. The seat was dry. No sign anyone had been sitting there. I got out, walked around, checked the back seat. Nothing. Just the faint smell of mildew, like wet leaves rotting in a drain. The timestamp on the app showed the ride had ended. 32:47, paid in full. I sat there for a while, engine idling, my hands shaking. Finally, I drove home. Didn't take another fare that night. The next morning, I tried to report the ride to Uber, just to see if there was some kind of glitch. But when I pulled up my trip history, the ride wasn't there. July 13th was blank between 2 and 3 a.m., like it had been erased. I went to my car and checked the dash cam. It records both front and rear footage. I fast-forwarded to the ride. The front camera showed me pulling up to the cloakroom, waiting, then driving away with no one ever getting in. The rear camera was black, just completely dark, as if the lens had been covered or turned off. It flicked back on only after I'd ended the ride. For a few weeks after that, I avoided downtown late at night, stuck to earlier shifts, more daytime fares, but the weirdness didn't stop. 3 nights later, around 2:15 a.m., I got another ping. Same name. Riley. No profile photo. This time the pickup was at a gas station on South Congress. I didn't accept the ride, but someone did. I found out because there's a local Discord for Austin Uber drivers, mostly people sharing traffic updates or complaining about surge pricing. One guy, Marcus, posted the next morning, "Anyone pick up a chick named Riley last night near SoCo? Black dress? Freaked me the hell out. Man, didn't say a word the whole ride, then just wasn't there when I pulled up to her drop. Swear to God, I thought I was going crazy. I DM'd him, asked for details. His story was nearly identical to mine, except his drop-off was out east, near the old drive-in theater ruins. He tried to report it too. No trip logged, no rider profile. Just a blank gap in the app. Since then, she's shown up again. Not every week, not even every month, but always after 2 a.m. Always with the same name. Always a black dress. And always gone before the ride ends. Some drivers swear she only appears during a certain phase of the moon. Others say it's tied to an accident that happened near the Capitol back in the 90s. A woman hit by a cab after him, leaving the cloakroom. I haven't been able to find a news article about it though. Just hearsay. I've seen Riley twice since that night. Once walking down Burnett Road at 2:30 in the morning. No shoes, just drifting between the streetlights. I didn't stop. Just drove right past. The second time was worse. I'd picked up a fare in Hyde Park, a group of UT kids heading home from a party. We were chatting, laughing, totally normal ride. I glanced in the rearview mirror to make sure they were buckled. She was sitting in the middle seat. None of them noticed. They were talking over her. One guy's arm was literally through her shoulder and didn't register a thing. She stared straight ahead, same as always. I didn't say a word, just kept driving, dropped them off, and when I looked again, gone. Sometimes I think about quitting, selling the car, getting out of rideshare altogether, but then I wonder if it would even matter, because every now and then when I check my rearview mirror late at night, especially after a long, quiet ride, I get the strangest feeling I'm not alone, and I know she doesn't need the app anymore. She's already in the back seat. I'm not the kind of person who posts on Reddit. Never really saw the point of shouting into the void unless you had something useful to say. But this isn't something I can keep in my head anymore. It's been eating at me for a year. I've told myself it was nothing, just a weird glitch, just stress, just my imagination. But it wasn't, and now I'm scared it's going to happen again. It was July 6th, 2024, a Saturday. Hot as hell, even for Missouri. 92 degree by noon. Sky a washed out blue, clouds like smudges. My wife and I were driving down to visit her parents in Arkansas with our daughter, Lily, in the back seat. She's 6. At the time, she was obsessed with dinosaurs and had a toy T-Rex she wouldn't let go of. We left our place in Columbia around 9:30 a.m. Figured we'd get there by 2 p.m., maybe earlier if traffic was light. I remember all the details of that morning. What we packed, what we talked about. I even remember the stupid song Lily made us play on repeat, some kind of kids pop remix of The Ants Go Marching. She sang the boom 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 parts at the top of her lungs. It was annoying, but in that sweet mom and dad will remember this forever kind of way. We hit Route 67 around 11:50 a.m. That stretch between Poplar Bluff and Neelyville is long and boring, just woods and occasional gas stations. We'd driven it dozens of times. Cell service drops off for a bit, and if you're not careful, it's easy to zone out. We had the dash cam running, mostly out of habit. I'm a bit paranoid about accidents, especially with Lily in the car, and I'd read a story about someone who caught a hit and run on theirs and got justice because of it. We stopped at a Love's just outside Poplar Bluff for snacks and gas. Got back on 67 at exactly 11:58 a.m. I remember because I glanced at the dash clock and mentally calculated the time left. Should have been a straight shot, and then we lost an hour. It didn't feel like anything. No jolt, no flash, no blacking out. Just 1 minute we were talking about what to order for lunch when we got to her parents', and the next thing I know, my wife shaking me by the arm and saying my name over and over. James, James. What? You blanked out. I looked around. We were still on 67. Trees on either side, no other cars in sight. Same sky, same damn kid's song looping from the back. But the clock on the dash said 1:04 p.m. My stomach dropped. I pulled over, blinking like I'd just woken up. My hands were still on the wheel. My foot had apparently stayed on the gas, but I had no memory, none, of the past hour. My wife Katie looked scared, not panicked but pale. I could see the veins in her temples pulsing. I tried to talk to you, she said. You weren't answering. Your eyes were open, but you were just staring, like you weren't there. I turned to look at Lily. She was quiet, hugging her T-Rex and looking out the window. She didn't seem scared, just zoned out. Lils? I asked. She blinked slowly, then said, That part was too long. What was too long, honey? She didn't answer, just went back to staring at the trees. I got out of the car to stretch my legs and clear my head. The air felt wrong, not cold, but dense, like I was breathing through damp cloth. The trees were totally still. No rustling, no birds, no bugs, nothing. I asked Katie what she remembered. She said she didn't notice anything strange until about 10 minutes in. She was checking her phone and realized the signal had dropped completely, which was normal. But when she looked back up, the scenery hadn't changed. Just endless trees, no signs, no other cars, and I'd stopped responding. She tried shaking. Me, yelling, even slapped me lightly. Nothing worked. Then at exactly 1:04, I suddenly blinked and asked what she wanted for lunch. I thought maybe it was a medical thing, a seizure, but I've never had one. No history, no symptoms. And Katie said I never convulsed or lost control, just froze. We drove the rest of the way in silence. I kept glancing at the dash clock like it owed me an answer. I don't know how to explain it, but there was a weight in the car, like the air was thicker. I didn't turn the music back on. Lily didn't ask. We got to her parents' house around 2:30 p.m. They lived just outside Pocahontas. Big white house, front porch, wind chimes that always clanged too loud. Her dad cracked a beer and started ranting about the heat wave, but I couldn't focus. My brain was trying to stitch something together that just wasn't there. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, I went out to the car and checked the dash cam footage. I figured if something weird happened, maybe the cam caught it. It had, sort of. The footage jumps at 12:01 p.m. One frame we're driving normally, trees passing by, sun filtering through. The next frame, everything is frozen. I don't mean the car stopped. The footage stopped moving. The trees outside the windows, the shadows, the dust on the dashboard, all motionless. Even the song that was playing suddenly cut to silence. It stays like that for 59 minutes and 18 seconds. No movement, no sound, just a still image, like a paused video. And then at 1:19, the song resumes mid-word, the shadows shift, and we're driving like normal. It's like the world itself was paused. I showed it to Katie, and she turned white. She watched the whole hour, fast-forwarding through the stillness over and over. "That's not possible," she kept saying. "That's not how video works." The GPS log showed the same thing, a sudden flat line in the route, like we didn't move an inch for nearly an hour. I didn't know what to do with that. Who do you even call? The cops? A tech guy? A priest? We didn't talk about it much after that. Got through the weekend, made small talk, drove back Monday morning. We took a different route home, through Highway 60, even though it added 40 minutes. I backed up the dashcam footage and GPS logs to my laptop and then to an external drive, just in case. Over the next few weeks, we tried to move on. Katie avoided any mention of the trip. I started having trouble sleeping. Not nightmares, more like dread. I'd wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. with my heart pounding, convinced something was about to happen. I started keeping the lights on in the hallway, like a kid. I know how dumb that sounds. Then Lily started drawing things. At first it was normal kid stuff, dinosaurs, trees, stick figures. But then she started bringing us pictures of the quiet woods, always the same, black trees, a gray sky, and a long, straight road with no end. Sometimes she'd draw our car in the middle, sometimes not. In one picture, the car had no wheels. It was floating. She said something once that's burned itself into my brain. I was tucking her in and asked about the new drawing. She said, "That's the part of the woods where the clocks don't work." I asked what she meant. She whispered, "That's where time hides." I didn't know what to say to that. She was 6. Maybe she'd overheard us talking. Maybe it was just her imagination trying to make sense of something strange. But the way she said it, the tone, it wasn't playful. It was flat. Like she'd accepted it as fact. In September, Katie brought up moving. Not because of the road, she said, just for a change of scenery. She found a house in Iowa near her sister. I agreed immediately. I didn't even ask the price. But the feeling followed us. Little things, electronics glitching, clocks resetting, moments where I'd walk into a room and forget why I was there. Not in the normal way, but like I'd actually lost time. Once I woke up with muddy socks, even though I went to bed barefoot. The back door was unlocked, and then 3 nights ago, it happened again. We were watching TV, some baking show Katie likes. Lily was asleep. I went to the kitchen to get a drink. I swear, I was gone for 30 seconds. But when I came back, Katie was crying. "Where did you go?" she asked. I said, "To get a drink." "For an hour?" I looked at the clock. It was 10:43. The show had ended. My beer was half finished on the counter, but I had no memory of drinking it. No memory of anything past opening the fridge. I checked the security cam. Same thing. One frame of me opening the fridge. Next frame, I'm walking back into the living room. 62 minutes later. It's not Route 67 anymore. It's us. I don't know what we passed through that day. A glitch, a tear in something, a part of the map we weren't supposed to see, but it saw us, and I think it marked us. I'm posting this now because I'm scared it's going to happen again, and one day we won't come back. I've locked every door, unplugged every clock. Lily's sleeping with us now. I don't care if it makes us look paranoid. But the worst part? Just before she drifted off tonight, she whispered something in my ear. "They're building a new road." I asked her what she meant. She said, "In the quiet woods. For more people, because now they know the way. If you're ever driving down Route 67 and the trees start to blur together and the sky looks too still, turn around, because I don't think you'll get that hour back." This happened in November of last year, 2024, just after Thanksgiving. I haven't told many people, only my brother and my dad. And even then, I left out parts. Not because I didn't want them to know, but because saying it out loud made it feel like I was pulling it into the room with me. I'm not a superstitious person. I don't believe in Bigfoot, and I don't think ghosts are real. I still don't know what to believe about what I saw, but I know what I heard. It was November 27th, the day after Thanksgiving. I remember because we'd had everyone over at my parents' house just outside Bryan, Texas. They live on a couple dozen acres out in the Post Oak Woods, about 20 minutes from town. It's quiet out there, a little isolated, but not totally off-grid or anything. Their neighbors aren't close, but if you shout loud enough, someone will hear you. I'm from Houston originally, but I live in Dallas now. After the big family dinner, I'd planned to head out the next morning. My wife Carly had stayed home with our baby. She was just 5 months old at the time, so I'd made the drive solo. It was supposed to be a short visit, just eat, catch up, drive home. That morning I got a call from an old high school buddy, Matt. He was down in College Station visiting his girlfriend's family. We hadn't seen each other in over a year. He suggested we meet halfway at a little spot we both knew from when we used to hunt together as teenagers. A gas line trail that cut through the Post Oak Woods north of Caldwell, near FM 60 and County Road 328. It wasn't really on the map, The kind of place you only know if someone shows you. I figured, why not? I hadn't walked those woods in over a decade. We used to sit out there at dawn waiting for deer. There was an old blind out there, just wood slats and camo netting, probably half collapsed by now. So I packed up my gear, told my folks I'd be back later than planned, and set off around noon. The weather was gray and low, heavy clouds but no rain, windless, humid, but not hot, around 72 degrees, the kind of air that feels like it's pressing in on you. Driving west on 60, you get that long stretch of nothing but pastures, barbed wire fences, and oil pump jacks nodding lazily in the distance. You pass a handful of gravel turnouts, deer feeders near the tree line, maybe a rusted gate here and there. I turned off onto CR 328 around 12:50 p.m. Matt texted me he'd be about 10 minutes late. No problem. I parked in the wide spot where we used to leave our trucks, at the edge of the trail. No signs, no markers, just a thin path through the brush, wide enough for an ATV if you're careful. The trees grow thick and low, and this time of year, the ground's soft with wet leaves. I left my truck unlocked and started walking. No gun, just my old field knife on my belt and a flashlight in my jacket. At first it was actually kind of peaceful, familiar. The trees hadn't changed. Post oaks are gnarly, bent things, like they've been clawing at the sky for 100 years. And it was dead quiet, not in a creepy way, not at first, just still. No wind, no birdsong, no traffic. About 10 minutes in, I noticed something odd. There were no fresh tire tracks. This trail gets used by ranchers and hunters all season long. Normally you'd see boot prints, maybe some ATV ruts, but the dirt looked undisturbed. Even the leaves were piled up thick, like no one had been back there in weeks. I stopped and looked around. I remember saying out loud, "Did they block it off?" But there weren't any fences or posted signs, just trees and the trail. A few minutes later, I reached the old blind, or what was left of it. The roof had caved in, and the wood was spongy with rot. It looked like a gust of wind would knock it flat. I kicked around the site a bit, found an old beer can rusted halfway into the dirt. It was like stepping back in time. I texted Matt to ask how far out he was. No response. That's when I heard the scream. It wasn't far off. Not a woman's. Scream, not exactly. Higher pitched than a man's voice, but not human. It started as a long wail, sharp and wavering, like it was moving between the trees. I froze, expecting to hear it again, and then it did it again, louder. Not closer, just louder, like it had learned how to push its voice harder. It wasn't like any animal I'd heard, and I've hunted in Texas all my life. Coyotes yip and laugh. Bobcats scream, yeah, but not like this. This was something else. It didn't echo. I know that sounds small, but it was what chilled me. Sounds echo out there, especially in the hollow parts of the woods. But this sound, this scream, it just stopped dead, like it was being sucked into the trees. I backed away from the blind, trying to pinpoint where it had come from. It was impossible to tell. The woods seemed to be holding it in. Another scream. Same sound. Same tone. No emotion in it. Not rage. Not pain. Just a constant, flat scream. Like someone was stuck on a single note. I started walking fast back toward the truck. Not running, but moving with purpose. I was halfway back when I saw something strange on the trail ahead. At first, I thought it was a deer standing crossways. You know how they freeze when they see you. But as I got closer, I realized it wasn't moving. It wasn't standing at all. It was something lying across the trail, pale. I stepped closer and saw it was a coyote, dead, lying belly up. Its throat was torn open, but there was no blood, not dried, not fresh. Just a clean hole, like something had bored into it and scooped out the inside. I took a step around it, and I swear to God, I heard it whisper. I turned and shined my flashlight on its face. The eyes were still open, clouded. Nothing there. But I heard it, not with my ears exactly. More like the words were inside my head. A long hissed whisper, syllables I didn't understand, but felt like they were meant for me. My skin broke out in goosebumps. I backed away and kept walking. Faster now. I kept checking over my shoulder, feeling watched. There were no more screams, just silence again. But it wasn't peaceful anymore. It was expectant, like something was waiting. When I reached my truck, I got in and locked the doors without thinking. My phone buzzed. Matt had texted back, "Sorry. Man can't make it, GF sick. Rain check?" I stared at that message. He'd sent it 20 minutes ago, before I heard the scream, before I found the coyote. I drove back to my parents' place in silence. No music, just the tires on gravel, the faint hum of the engine. The whole drive, I felt like something was in the bed of the truck. I didn't dare look. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept hearing that scream, but only in my dreams. And in every dream, I was back at that trail, but it kept going. I never reached the blind. The path just wound deeper and deeper into the woods. The trees got denser, the light got dimmer, and the screams never stopped. When I woke up the next morning, my truck had scratches down the driver's side, long, thin gouges, like something had scraped it with claws. My dad thought I'd driven too close to a mesquite bush. I didn't argue. I haven't gone back to that trail. I won't. I called Matt the week after and told him what happened, or most of it. When I got to the part about the scream, he got really quiet. I asked if he'd ever heard anything like that out there. He said, "I thought that was just a story. My girlfriend's dad told me never to stop on 328 at night. He said there's a thing that screams from the trees. He said hunters call it the post oak screamer." I thought he was messing with me. I said, "It's not a story." He paused, then said something I'll never forget. He said it doesn't have eyes, just a mouth, always open, always screaming. I hung up after that. Sometimes, when I'm driving at night and I've been on the road too long, I'll start to hear something just under the hum of the tires. A high, thin wail, like wind through a tight crack. It always goes away when I stop the car, but sometimes I wonder if it's just waiting for me to pull over. I'm not the kind of person who posts on Reddit. I scroll mostly. I read the stories. R no sleep, R paranormal, R let's not meet, all that weird stuff that people tell themselves isn't real. I used to be like that too, but this thing won't. Leave me alone, and I don't know where else to put it. This happened in October of last year, 2024, about a week before Halloween. I live in Houston, just outside the 610 loop near Pasadena. I work for a small IT company doing on-site tech support. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. That week, we had a system install out in Pearland that went late into the evening. I left the client site at 9:43 p.m. on Thursday, October 24th. I remember the exact time because I texted my girlfriend as I got into the car. We'd been fighting earlier that day. I wrote something dumb like, "On my way, hope we're still up." I was driving my old Civic down Beltway 8, northbound, toward the interchange with I-45. It had been drizzling most of the evening, one of those slow, misty rains that coats everything in a thin film, but never quite turns into a storm. The pavement was dark and slick. The air smelled like wet concrete and distant gasoline. I was tired. That kind of tired that sinks into your jaw and behind. Your eyes. The kind that makes the road hum under your tires like a lullaby. I wasn't falling asleep or anything, but I wasn't really there either. I had just passed the Hughes Road exit when I saw something on the shoulder under the overpass, right where the Beltway dips under the railroad bridge. It wasn't a person, exactly. At first I thought it was a big black trash bag half sunken into the mud, like something the road crew forgot to clear. But it moved. Not much, just a twitch, like it had an elbow. I slowed down, not stopped, just eased off the gas. The thing was maybe 10 yards off the road. There were no streetlights under that part of the overpass, just the sodium glow bouncing in from the distant gas stations. Everything had that hazy yellow look, like an old photograph left in the sun. As I coasted past, the thing twitched again, definitely moved. Its surface was glossy and wet. Black, but not quite. There were hints of green or blue when the light hit it right, like oil slick on water. It didn't look up. It didn't chase me. It just stayed there in the muck, crawling. I couldn't see arms or legs, just long, jointed pieces that scraped along the concrete like spider legs that weren't quite attached to anything. It didn't make a sound. Not that I could hear anyway. My windows were up. The radio was off. I passed it. And then I kept going. For a while, I didn't even think about it. Just a weird thing on the side of the road. Could have been a bag, or an animal, or a trick of the light. That's what I told myself. Then the knocking started. The first time was the next night. Friday. I didn't take the Beltway that time. I was heading home from a friend's apartment near the Galleria and took I-610 east. Different route. Different bridges. Different traffic. I got home around 11:30 p.m. It was still wet outside, rain on and off. I parked in the carport and went inside. Normal night. My girlfriend was already asleep on the couch, Netflix still playing on her laptop. I shut it, tossed a blanket over her, and went to bed. Sometime after 2 a.m., I heard it. 3 sharp knocks. Knock, 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 like someone tapping on the window. Not banging, just firm, rhythmic. I live in a 1-story duplex. The bedroom faces the backyard. There's a small window over the headboard. It's always locked. I checked it that night. Still locked. Nothing outside but the alley and the fence. It happened again Saturday. Same time, same pattern. 3 knocks, but this time they came from the hallway. From inside the house. I got up, turned on every light. My girlfriend slept through the whole thing. I checked every window, every door. Nothing. Sunday was worse. That time it didn't knock. It scraped. I was in bed, half asleep. Rain again, a soft patter against the glass. Then this sound, like something long and sharp was dragging itself down the hallway tile. Squeak, squeak, squeak. It stopped just outside the bedroom door. I couldn't move. I wasn't paralyzed or anything, just frozen in place, listening. I could hear my own breath in the dark. My girlfriend mumbled something in her sleep, turned over. The sound didn't come back. Monday morning, I checked the floor. No marks, no prints, nothing. I didn't tell her. I didn't want her to think I was losing it. Hell, I didn't want to think I was losing it. Tuesday, I took Beltway 8 again. Not on purpose. It's just the fastest route to a site we had in Channelview. It was sunny that day. Hot, humid, typical Texas October. The whole way there, I kept thinking about that thing under the bridge. Wondering if I'd imagined it. Wondering if I should stop and look this time. Get out of the car. Prove to myself it wasn't real. I didn't stop. That night, the knocking came back. This time from the living room window. Then the back door. Then the bathroom. Always 3 knocks. Always in sequence. Like it was moving around the house. Tapping. Waiting. My girlfriend did hear it that time. She sat up in bed, bleary-eyed. "Did you hear that?" I lied. "No, probably just raccoons. Or the wind." She stared at the door for a long time before lying back down. Wednesday night, I dreamed about it. In the dream, I was standing under the overpass. It was pitch black, no cars, no rain, just silence, and this thing crawling toward me across the wet concrete. It didn't have a face or eyes, but it watched me. I could feel it, like heat on the back of my neck. It didn't speak, but I heard it anyway. "You saw me." I woke up drenched in sweat. The sheets were soaked. My girlfriend had already left for work. I called in sick that day. Sat on the couch all afternoon with the blinds closed and every light on. The knocking didn't come. Thursday, I went back to the overpass. It was 10:12 p.m. I made myself drive that route again. I told myself it was to face it, to prove it wasn't real. I parked on the shoulder, hazards on, and walked toward the underpass with a flashlight. The air stank. Not just wet earth, something sour, like mold and copper and decay. The concrete was streaked with black smears like old tire marks or oil stains, but they were in lines, narrow curling patterns, like something had been dragged back and forth. like claw marks made by something, too soft to scratch stone but too heavy to float. I shined my flashlight into the dark. Nothing there. But I heard it, the scrape. Just once. A single slow drag across the pavement. I didn't wait. I got back in the car and drove straight home. The knocking started the moment I pulled into the carport. Not inside, under the car. 3 hard thumps against the undercarriage. Knock, knock, knock. I jumped out, dropped my keys, got down on the ground with my phone flashlight. Nothing, just rain puddles and gravel. I didn't sleep that night. Friday morning I found something in the house. Not big, just a smear. On the inside of the hallway closet door, black and oily, like tar or old blood. But the door was closed and locked. We never use that closet. It holds boxes and junk. I opened it. The boxes were wet, soaked through. Everything smelled rotten. I pulled one out and it fell apart in my hands. The bottom had turned to pulp. Inside were old Christmas decorations, covered in that same black smear. Long streaks of it, like something had crawled across them. I threw everything away. Bleached, the whole closet. Saturday, my girlfriend left. Not because of the thing. She didn't know about any of that. We'd been drifting for a while. The fights got worse, the silences longer. That morning, she said she needed space. Packed a bag and went to her sister's. That night, it came into the house. I didn't hear it at first. I was in the kitchen drinking straight from the bottle, trying not to cry. Then the lights flickered, just once. And then the hallway turned cold. Not AC cold, not drafty, dead cold. Like the air had been sucked out. And there it was, crawling out of the closet. Long jointed limbs like elbows bent the wrong way. No eyes, no mouth. Just wet black skin that glistened in the light like rotting plastic. It moved in silence. No footsteps, no breath. Just the sound of its limbs scraping the tile. I didn't move. I couldn't. It reached the kitchen doorway, paused, and then tapped 3 times on the wall. Knock, knock, knock. And then it vanished. Not like a puff of smoke. Just gone. Like it slipped behind something I couldn't see. Like the world folded around it. I left the house that night, stayed in a motel off I-10, slept with the lights on and a knife under the pillow. It still knocked. This time, on the motel bathroom mirror. Saw the prints, 3 long, greasy smudges, as if fingers had pressed in from inside the glass. I moved out of the house the next day. I haven't gone back since. I stayed with friends. Then a sublet. Now a studio apartment across town. No windows facing the street. No mirrors near the bed. But sometimes, around 2-1 a.m., I hear it. Soft at first. Then louder. 3 knocks. Never more. Never less. Always in a different place. Sometimes the wall. Sometimes the floor. Sometimes just behind my head. It never speaks again. But I remember what it said. You saw me. I think that's all it needed. For someone to see it. To know it's there. I think it's under more than just that overpass. I think it's everywhere now. Waiting. Crawling. Knocking. And someday, maybe not today, maybe not next week, it'll find another person driving, home late at night, tired, alone, passing under a stretch of road where no lights reach, and it'll make sure they see it too. It was Saturday, October 19th, 2019, a little after 3 p.m., when I pulled onto RM32, the scenic byway known locally as Devil's Backbone. If you're not from Texas, that name probably sounds a little dramatic, but folks around here say the Ridge. Got it for a reason. The road snakes through limestone hills and cedar breaks between Wimberley and Blanco, giving panoramic views of the hill country. It's beautiful in that dry, harsh way. Crumbling cliffs, live oak branches twisting like arthritic fingers, and big, lonely skies that seem too wide for the world. I was heading to a cabin I'd rented for the weekend. My girlfriend had broken Things off the week before and I needed space. No phone calls, no texts, no social media. Just some quiet time with my thoughts, some beer, and a few old Western novels. I'd found the listing on Airbnb. Small one-bedroom place with a wraparound porch, tucked back on a dirt road off the backbone, closer to Blanco. No neighbors within shouting distance. Just what I was looking for. The weather had turned cool. The night before, finally dipping below 70 after weeks of late summer heat. And that afternoon, the sky was cloudless. The sun was low and golden, hanging to the west over the canyon. The radio in my old Tacoma was set to the local FM country station, but it started cutting out around the first big overlook. Not weird, reception gets patchy through the hills, but the static kept crackling in a strange pattern, not the usual white noise either. It had rhythm to it, almost like speech, though I couldn't make it out. I turned the knob a little, trying to find a clearer station, but it didn't. Matter what frequency I landed on, same low hiss, same faint pattern beneath it. Then, just past the turnout for FM 165, the static thinned out, and I heard something. A voice. Faint. High-pitched. Help me. I slowed down, thinking maybe I'd passed an emergency alert. But the dash display just showed 95.1 FM, the station I'd been on originally. Nothing had changed. I turned up the volume. Help me, the voice repeated. Please. It sounded like a child. A girl, maybe 6 or 7. She didn't sound panicked. Not exactly. More like tired, like she'd been crying already. I felt the hair on my arms stand up. A prickling sense of alert I hadn't felt since I was a kid, and thought I heard someone whispering under my bed. I glanced around. The ridge drops steeply on either side, so there aren't really driveways or houses directly off the road, just cliffs, trees, and brush. No cars behind me, none coming the other way. I slowed to about 20, cracked the window. Listened, but outside there was only the dry rustle of cedar in the wind. No child, no voice, no sound at all, really. It was like the world had gone muffled. Then the voice came through again. This time louder, still on the radio. Please help me, I'm lost. Please. I turned off the radio. The voice kept going. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The screen on the dash went dark, radio completely off, but the voice was still there. Weaker now, like it was being smothered in the air between the speakers. I'm cold, it said. It's dark here, I can't find them. And then, nothing. Just silence. I pulled over, my heart was thudding. I sat there on the gravel shoulder, engine idling, hands on the steering wheel. I waited a full minute, watching. The road, listening. No voice, no static. The radio stayed dead. The air felt thinner than it should have, like being up a mountain, even though the elevation wasn't all that high. I told myself I was tired, still rattled from the breakup, still in my own head. I turned the truck back on. The radio stayed silent. Just silence. I drove the rest of the way in a kind of daze. The turnoff for the cabin was about 5 miles. Down a narrow dirt track that sloped steeply between barbed wire fences. It wound past a dried-out creek bed, then up a slope to a weathered cedar plank house. The key was under a rock by the steps, just like the host had said. It was about 4:30 when I stepped inside. The cabin smelled like dust and pine cleaner. Simple inside. 1 room plus a bathroom, stone fireplace, small kitchenette, couch, and bed. Everything was neat and quiet. I put my bag down, opened a shiner from the fridge, and sat on the porch facing west. The sun was about to drop below the tree line, bleeding orange over the hills. A few buzzards drifted overhead. Nothing out of the ordinary. No reason for me to feel like something had followed me there. But I did. That night, I grilled a couple. Burgers on the little charcoal pit out back. Played a few hands of solitaire. Read a chapter of Blood Meridian. Every time I caught myself relaxing, I'd remember the voice. The girl. That weird, bone-deep feeling that she'd somehow gotten into my truck, into the radio. I left it off. Around 11 p.m., I crawled into bed. The silence was thick. No crickets, no wind, Just the ticking of the little analog clock on the nightstand and the occasional groan of the floorboards. I didn't fall asleep right away. I just stared at the ceiling, letting my eyes adjust to the dark. After about an hour, I must have dozed off. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. to a faint, crackling sound. Static, but the radio was still off. I sat up in bed. The cabin was pitch black. My eyes adjusted enough to see the faint red glow of the clock and the shape of the little radio on the kitchen counter. A cheap, battery-powered thing I hadn't noticed earlier. It was on. I swear to God it was off when I went to bed. There was no power light, no dial showing a station, just the sound, low static, and underneath it, the voice. "Don't leave me here." It was so soft I thought I was imagining it. I don't know where I am. I walked over to the counter and turned the knob hard to off. Nothing changed. I'm so cold. I yanked the batteries out. The voice didn't stop. That was when I felt something behind me, not touching me, but near, too near, like the air had pressure, and it shifted when I moved. I turned around fast, heart slamming. Nothing. I left the cabin then. Didn't take my keys or flashlight, just bolted out the front door and into the scrub around the house. My bare feet hit rocks and thorns, but I didn't feel it. I ran until I reached the edge of the driveway, and only then did I look back. The cabin was dark, but the porch light flicked on, then off, then on again. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the truck with the doors locked, lights off, staring at the cabin until dawn. The whole time the radio, still off, hummed with a faint static. Every few minutes I thought I heard the girl's voice again. Never clear, never enough. To prove it wasn't in my head, I left first thing that morning. Didn't even go back inside to grab my stuff. Just drove straight down Devil's Backbone, not stopping until I hit the main road to San Marcos. Reception kicked in again about halfway there. A Willie Nelson song on the radio. Normal. I never reported it. Who would I call? What would I say? But here's the part I haven't told anyone. The part that's kept me up for weeks now. I got a new truck in July. Brand new F-150. No used parts. No transfer of anything from the Tacoma except a box of CDs and a phone charger. 2 nights ago, I was driving home late from a work thing. Clear sky, windows down. Not far from Wimberley, near that first overlook on the Backbone. The radio clicked on by itself. Static, then faint and fragile. The same voice. "Please help me. I'm lost." And somewhere under that, layered just deep enough I almost didn't notice. "You brought me with you." It was September 18th, 2022, a Sunday, and it was the last day I ever drove past exit 109 on Route 41. I remember because the Packers had just lost to the Bears, and my Uncle Rob was ranting on the radio. Not an actual station, just the little podcast he records from his garage in Waupaca. I only put it on to make him feel like someone's listening. It was 7:42 p.m. when I pulled onto the highway, sky still clinging to the last strips of daylight. The kind of dusty orange that makes the trees look like they're glowing from within. It was warm that day. High 70s, muggy. A few mosquitoes still bouncing off the windshield. I'd been at my mom's all weekend helping her clear out the attic after her surgery, and I was finally heading home to Eau Claire. She didn't want to admit it, but I could tell she was having more trouble than she let on. Couldn't lift boxes, couldn't reach above her shoulders. That kind of thing. Anyway, by the time I got on 41 heading north, it was full dark. No moon, but that soft amber glow kind of dark you get from roadside gas stations and the occasional Dairy Queen sign flickering through the trees. I'd driven that route 100 times, so I knew exactly when to zone out, what turns to expect. A kind of muscle memory takes over. You stop really seeing the road until something changes. It was 8:17 p.m. when I passed a Shell station just outside Fremont. I'd stopped there once before, the kind of place where the air pump never works and the inside smells like boiled eggs. I remember glancing at the neon sign and thinking it looked dimmer than usual, like someone had smeared it with grease. I wasn't even 10 miles past it when I saw the El Camino, a dusty two-tone 78, blue with the faded tan side paneling. Headlights on, windows down. It was going maybe 40 in the right lane. I slowed down, thinking maybe they were having engine trouble, but I never saw hazard lights. No signals, just crawling west. As I passed, I caught a glimpse of the driver. Middle-aged, maybe older. Weathered face, short-cropped gray hair, hands gripping the wheel at 10 and 2 like he was on his driver's test. No expression, no music, no phone, just staring ahead. What really stuck with me were his eyes. They didn't flick to me as I passed, didn't glance at the road or the side mirror, just locked dead center like he was watching something far off, in the dark. About 5 minutes later, I saw him again. Same car, same speed. I just passed exit 102 and was merging into the left lane after a semi when he came up on my right, creeping along at the exact same pace as before. I must have stared at him for a solid 10 seconds before realizing what I was seeing. It was the same man, same El Camino, same worn-down license plate. I remember because it had this weird split in the bottom left corner, like someone had bent it back and forth until it cracked. I watched it glide past me like I was parked. I slowed to 45, checked my mirrors. Nothing behind me for half a mile. No U-turn spots, no off-ramps. Nothing he could have used to loop around and overtake me. But there he was, up ahead, shrinking into the dark. I didn't pass him again. Not for another 20 minutes. This time, I was coming up on exit 93, the one with the boarded-up diner with the peeling blue awning. I always glance at it when I go by. It looks like a place from a different century, and I keep expecting it to be torn down every time I pass. But it's always still there, like it's waiting for someone. And that's when I saw the car again, sitting, parked on the shoulder, just past the off-ramp. Same El Camino. But now the driver was standing outside it, leaning against the hood, facing the woods with his back to the road. He didn't move. Didn't turn his head as I passed. Just stood there like he'd been poured out of the seat and left to harden in the sun. I checked my rear view. He didn't move. By now, something was wrong with my breathing. I hadn't noticed it at first, but my chest was tight. Jaw clenched. The kind of reaction you get from a near miss or hearing bad news. My heart wasn't racing exactly, but it wasn't right. Like it knew something my brain hadn't caught up with yet. At 9:12, I hit a stretch of road with no lights. Just trees and darkness and the white lines blurring past under my tires. I turned off Rob's podcast, rolled down the window. That's when I heard the sound. It wasn't music. It wasn't speech, just this steady, low engine hum. Not my car. Mine's a Civic, and this was deeper, heavier, like something older. I checked my mirrors again. Nothing. Then I glanced left, across the median, and I swear to God, I saw him again. The same car, now heading the opposite direction on the southbound side. No other cars around him. Just that slow, deliberate crawl. And this time, he was looking at me. His head turned with mine, like a mirror image. Like he'd been waiting for me to look. The skin under his eyes was dark, sunken, but his mouth was smiling, just barely. The smile wasn't friendly. It wasn't threatening either. It was knowing. I must have sped up without realizing because the next time I checked the dash, I was going 83. I kept going. I wanted to get to exit 86, where the Love's truck stop is, where there'd be lights and people and cameras, but I never got there. Because right before the exit, my headlights lit up something on the shoulder. I had just enough time to register the tan side paneling and the cracked license plate before I flew past it. The El Camino was parked again, only now the driver wasn't alone. There was someone else in the passenger seat. I only saw them for half a second, but they weren't sitting right. Their head was tilted at a strange angle, chin almost touching their collarbone. No movement, no expression, just there. And the worst part? I recognized the shirt. It was mine. The faded green hoodie I was wearing in the photo on my college ID, the one I lost last year. That was the first time I stopped the car. I pulled over, heart hammering, and sat there gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I looked back. Nothing. The road was empty, just a long, dark ribbon stretching behind me into the trees. I told myself I imagined it, that I was tired, that I'd just driven too long and my brain was scrambling details. Then the lights behind me came on. I saw them flare up in the mirror. 2 dim yellow headlights, low to the ground. Same height, same shape, same dirty haze. I didn't wait. I floored it, tires kicking up gravel as I swerved back onto the highway. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. A notification from Google Maps. Traffic ahead, route recalculation in progress. No bars, no GPS signal. Just that one message, pulsing on screen. I glanced at the road and realized I didn't recognize where I was anymore. The signs were wrong. The numbers didn't make sense. Exit 7712, maintenance access only. I'd never seen it before. There are no half exits on Route 41. Then I saw the El Camino again. This time it was facing me. Parked sideways across the road, no driver in sight. Headlights flickering like a dying flashlight. I slammed the brakes, skidded hard to the right, and ended up in a shallow ditch. The car stalled. I sat there, trembling, staring at the unmoving silhouette of the El Camino across the highway. My engine wouldn't turn over. I tried again. Nothing. I didn't want to look away, but I had to check my phone again. Still no signal. When I looked, back up, the El Camino was gone. No tire marks, no sound, no taillights disappearing into the distance. Just gone. I sat in the ditch for nearly an hour. Eventually, a county sheriff passed by and pulled over. His name was Deputy Connor. He said I'd fallen asleep at the wheel. Claimed he found me with my eyes closed, both hands on the wheel, engine off. I didn't argue. I let him tow me back to a gas station in Oshkosh. I didn't tell him what I'd seen. What would I even say? The car was fine. Battery worked. No damage underneath. I drove home in silence. That was almost a year ago. I haven't driven that stretch of highway since. I take the long way through Stevens Point now, even if it adds hours. People call me paranoid. They say I probably dreamed it. Highway hypnosis or a waking dream. But last week, my friend Joel sent me a photo. He was driving back from Green Bay and saw something weird on the shoulder. A parked El Camino, dusty blue with tan side panels. No driver in sight, no plates, just sitting there like it had nowhere else to be. He sent the photo to our group chat, and in the passenger seat, barely visible through the glare on the windshield, was someone slumped forward, wearing a faded green hoodie. The same one that went missing from my laundry a month ago. I didn't respond, because I already know. He doesn't stop driving, and someday he won't be the only one behind the wheel.